in Europe, if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police state.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because, you know, this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their like one of the, I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the 24th of February, and you're waking up to Talk Breakfast. My name's Jeremy Kyle. This is, of course, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. Well, you all saw it, I've no doubt, overnight. Last night, Lord Peter Mandelson, does he deserve that title? Arrested in the full view of the cameras, taken out of his £7.6 million Regent's Park house by detectives and held overnight. Well, not overnight, till about 1 o'clock in the morning. Released on bail. The charge, allegedly passing secret government information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Call out to Kev O'Sullivan, which doesn't happen very often, as he put it last night. So Randy Andy and Dodgy Mandy have both had their collars felt by the cops. This story is not going anywhere. But you know what? We're going to change the angle a bit today. Mandelson is what Mandelson is. Look at the front page of The Sun. I mean, it's as dodgy as hell. I've said before, one wonders if he'll squeal, one wonders how much dirt he's got. But let's bring it back to Keir Starmer. Yes, he is beleaguered, our Prime Minister, and so he should be, because as Kemi Badenoch said yesterday, this is the man that picked Peter Mandelson to be the US ambassador, one of the most highest profile civil service jobs. He selected him against the advice of almost everybody. Everybody seems to know what a toe rag Peter Mandelson, absolutely everybody. Even the Labour Party, the backbenches, warned Starmer not to do it. But no, he went ahead. What does this say about Keir Starmer's judgment? ... That he hasn't got any judgment. That would be my opinion. We'd love to hear from you nice and early. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Yeah, it is about his judgment. We've got a clip. This is when Keir Starmer said, I think Mandelson's a top bloke. Have a watch, have a listen. No?
Already I can feel there's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter.
I mean, that in itself is quite frightening. That's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom saying, I've got full confidence in Peter Mandelson, who last night was languishing in a prison cell accused of passing secret government information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Get your voice note in nice and early, 0344 419 1000. More on the front of the Sun as well today. New claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor made taxpayers pay for his own private massages whilst working as a trade envoy in Australia and New Zealand. For him, sadly, it hasn't ended up with a happy ending. Boom. We're on it at 6:05 in the morning yesterday. New Zealand and Australia backing plans to have him removed from the line of succession. That's a given. What do you make of it? It's a disgrace. 0344 419 1000 needs to go to prison as well. On a serious note, this is a story, and I'm so delighted that we've got this lady. Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane, it transpires overnight. This is appalling. Was free to slaughter 3 people after mental health workers feared detaining him would be racist. A public inquiry heard yesterday. Yeah, you heard it right. They released Valdo Calacane because of the colour of his skin and felt that it would be wrong to keep him in prison. And he was let out, schizophrenic, to stab Grace O'Malley Kumar and Barnaby Webber, both aged 19, and 65-year-old Ian Coates to death in June 2023. We're delighted later on the show to have Barnaby's mother, Emma, on this show. An incredibly brave woman, and what does that say? Seriously, wow. And this will get you as well. On a Tuesday morning, over half of the councils are still failing to comply with crystal clear Supreme Court biological sex rulings a year after that landmark judgment, you know, men and women. The NHS tells staff they can list several examples of pronouns. We'll put this to you throughout the morning. Apparently you can be, and I'm not very good at this, so I apologise if you're waking up, alarm clock. It's I, me, she, her, he, him, they, them, Ziza, what the hell does that mean? They, them, or it's tits. Oh, not sorry, tits, sorry, it's it's tits. Anyway, it might have, I've no idea. Anyway, how ludicrous is that? And this is true, very quickly. Having an operation in a month, phoned up and did the old pre-assessment the other day, and the woman said, what are your pronouns? And I went, sod and off. She didn't laugh. And also, Samara Gill, our roving reporter, heading down to Whitechapel, where yesterday that story emerged that female police officer stood up to a bunch of Muslim men who said, this is our area, get out. And the police officer went, no, free speech works both ways. We're also absolutely touching base with the fact that it was 4 years ago today that Russia invaded Ukraine, and Kira Ruddock, who's been a strong voice for Ukraine, on the show as well. All of that coming up. Your texts and your emails, and we'll start in the only way we know on a Tuesday with the legend that is Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of a Tory party, who are smiling a little bit this morning, aren't you?
Good morning. All good, all good. Although it does feel like this Mandelson stuff, it goes on and on and on, and it's just, yeah.
Can I ask you a question as an MP, right? We've heard that the alleged charge could be, will be, might be passing secret government information. Everybody I speak to, even on the Labour benches, says, we've known what a toe rag, why people wouldn't go near him. You've just seen a clip from Starmer not a year ago. He must have known what was going on. Why has Peter Mandelson got away with it for so long? And more importantly, what does it say about Keir Starmer?
He's an absolute rotter, though, isn't he? I mean, the guy was sacked from office. We had the loans issue, we had the dishing out of the passport stuff, resigned from office several times over. Starmer thinks it's a good thing to bring him back. We then get the confession from Starmer about the fact he knew that the guy was linked up with Epstein even after he'd been charged. The thing is stinking, absolutely stinking. But then, I mean, if you were looking at this from the outside, I've said it before, I'd say it again, if you were looking at this from the outside and we didn't have the evidence, we hadn't seen it all, you would assume that this was some, like, nutty conspiracy. The royal family linked to this, senior members of the government linked to this vile, evil paedophile, but it's not even his links to a sick pedo, it's the fact he was giving away government documents, giving away information.
Allegedly.
Well, yeah, allegedly. He's under investigation.
Investigation, allegedly. Keir Starmer, you know that clip I played about, you know, we know him as Peter? This was him in the Commons backing him as well. Play this one.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Not going to play such an important role if he's in... I love the headline. Well done, Cam. Porridge for Pete. He's going to have a hard time in prison, isn't he? Let's just move on. If he goes to prison,
He deserves
obviously.
a hard time in prison.
Well, I keep saying this, right? I keep saying this, and people laugh at me. How much does he have on them? Because to have even got back to that job, or any job, with the character and the background that Peter Mandelson has got, he must have loads on all of them. That's what I reckon. He'll squeal like a pig.
The other unbelievable bit
if you just tuned in, it's not because he's going to be in prison.
They've got away with it for how long? Like, this wasn't last year, it wasn't the year before. This is decades of these guys have got away with what they've been up to. It's finally coming out all this time down the line. How have they got away with it for so long?
Yeah.
They're in it up to the necks.
And also the other story about Andy this morning, page 5 of The Sun. Rub down for Andy. Oh, God, The Sun is so fantastic. Rub down for Andy. Taxpayer massages. Disgraced Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor used taxpayers' money for massages whilst working as the UK's trade envoy. Ex-civil servants claim. Ex-civil servants only now. We were paying for him to be rubbed up. I mean, the whole thing. It's not been a happy ending, though, has it?
Well,
I'm sorry about that. I can't possibly not do that all morning.
As a royalist, all of the things that people criticise these entitled people about, you kind of argue, no, there was a role for the royal family, you defend the Queen, you defend the King, and then this guy just lets the side down, doesn't he?
But you know,
unbelievable level.
I agree with you, but I do think, and I said it yesterday, this is me being quite serious as a royalist, I think there are massive questions to answer. I'm glad the Queen is no longer here. She will always be an icon to me, but I have to tell you, the way that she treated him, the way that she let him get away with his behaviour is being questioned. How much Charles knew, but more than that, and all the people who say, oh, it'll be fine, the British monarchy has never been in such a perilous state. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're supposed to do to get it back, but it's important.
I mean, I still think the Queen's amazing. She's not here to ever account for it. So
she paid for my education, of course. But I'm not. The point of the matter is, if your mum gave you 12 million quid, she'd ask you what it was for, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
And I'm not having
She's
a go
not
at
here
her.
to defend herself, so we can't. But I think you're right. I think if she'd still been here to live through this, I think she would be absolutely devastated by what this means for the royal family. I still think that the country believes in the royal family. I still think that this guy is one vile, sick individual who can land wherever he might have landed, and this time he happens to have landed in the royal family.
But you know, 2019, this was proven in the Mail on Sunday by Isabel Oakeshott over the weekend, proves that Charles and the Queen knew in 2019. Charles was telling... Here's the bit I love, Mandelson was behind his appointment as the trade envoy because he was business secretary. So it's just jobs for the boys, isn't it?
The entire thing... The royal family, the top level of government, the most prestigious diplomatic post around, and they are linked up with this vile, awful character.
What does it say about Keir Starmer's judgment, though? Mandelson, seriously?
Well, the thing is, it's a pattern of behaviour, isn't it? We've got the Mandelson story. He appoints this guy, knowing full well, he's confessed at the dispatch box, he knew about the links with Epstein and Mandelson after he was charged. And then you've got the Matthew Doyle story. Yeah. Guy who worked at Number 10 as his comms director, appointed to the House of Lords. Now turns out he is linked up with a paedophile, and it understood that Starmer knew when he appointed him. How can we have that going on at Number 10? How can these people, a guy who's running the country, is able to make the decision to appoint people he knows are linked up with some of the most vile, sick people on earth?
And I never understand, you know this... They said the wrong words. You know all this stuff about, human rights. It's all about human rights. Let's give away Chagos. Let's make sure we do right by the world. Let's look good in the world. But you're happy to give peerages and jobs to people who are associated with child abuse, yeah? Where's your human rights there? This is what I don't understand, and I'll make it a bigger discussion about the grooming gangs inquiry. It will drive me insane forever. Tomorrow, by the way, Maggie Oliver, an exclusive on this show, because, hold on a minute, you go on, Keir Starmer, about how it's important that we treat people properly. I'm into diversity and equality. What about the girls that were raped? What about the kids that were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his mates, of which one of them is a man you gave a job to knowing he had those links? I think his judgment, I think he should be... I can't have
the horror stories, but the thing becomes remote, actually. That is what it's all about. It's about the victims, what they've gone through. Yeah. But it becomes remote because we start looking at how horrific it is that these guys are getting appointed, and the people appointing them know about the link. But actually, it comes down to what went on. What that vile creature did to those girls is just beyond the pale.
0344 499 1000. Get your voice notes in nice and early to Christian. He's in white today. I don't know what that means. You can also get a text in. Damien, or G-Spot, as we call him, because we can never find him. He's looking full of beans today, 87222. This is a question I wanted to put to you. Jeff, spot on. Has anybody heard a peep from the creator of Lord Mandelson? The one and only Tony Blair? I wonder why. It's not just Starmer's judgment, it's the whole of bloody New Labour, their project for the last 30 years. When I say squeal, I'm not pointing fingers, you have to wonder. You know, Gordon Brown came out, I think, to defend his own position. Not a peep from Blair.
Well, there's a documentary being released, isn't there, at the minute, about Blair, the Blair years and the Blair story, whatever it is, just come out on Channel 4. And at the end, because Mandelson features in it, and he's brown-nosing Blair and saying how great Blair is and giving you the...
Brown-nosing, that's since the playground. It's brilliant.
Well, they've had to add a line into the end of the documentary, each episode saying, this was all filmed before we knew what Mandelson was up to, effectively, so as not to...
I wonder if he's got stuff on Blair. I'm being serious. If he is facing a prison sentence, will he bleat? It's Andrew Manbatten Windsor, the massages. It's Lord Mandelson languishing in a cell. And this is James. Good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. Now, if anyone tells me that the Queen and the King didn't know what he was up to, that's absolute bullshit. Sorry, but that's absolute BS. Once this stuff gets deeper and deeper, disgusting stuff, they will throw him under the bus because obviously they need to keep their monarchy going. To me, Jezza, I can't stand the royal family. I've never liked them and never will do. We don't need a royal family, Jezza. They're all benefit scroungers, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not a royalist. I never will be. Anyway, Jeremy, keep up the good work that you're doing. I really enjoy listening to you in the morning.
Brilliant. Listen, that's the beauty, by the way, of this show. We can disagree. I'm not a Republic, I'm a royalist, and I fear for the royal family. I can say to that man with the hand on my heart, up to 10, 15 years ago, the money that the royal family brought into this country and this economy by selling UK PLC far dwarfs anything. You think of what a president costs. But I completely get, and anybody that's a royalist who doesn't accept this, Matty, they are in a precarious position because the public, and I said it to Cam downstairs earlier, who made a really good point, there's just a lack of trust, man. There's a lack of trust in almost, well, so many parts of the establishment, politics, religion, the royal family, and you go, what is true? How many people have been feathering their own nests for years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, these huge, privileged, honoured positions and opportunities, like Mandelson, like Andrew, put there, I mean, the case of Mandelson, knowing the right people, scratching the right backs, ends up in this post. And then for all of the pretense, all the things people might think could be the worst possible outcome, there it is, it's real, it happened. These people have those awful links with those sick characters.
Have you been to Solihull? It's the posh part of Birmingham.
I've not been to Solihull.
People get out the bath to have a wee in Solihull. Morning, Clyde. Great show as ever, JK. I noticed Lord Mandy has been bailed, but Andrew was released under investigation. Not sure what the difference is. Do you know what the difference is?
Well, they're still both being investigated.
I know, but doesn't the bail thing mean it's more solidified? Does it not mean... I think Randy No, that's Andy. What are we calling... I want to play that song. Oh, Mandy, will you... Anyway, he's in trouble. Morning, Jez. The thing about Mandy is they all supported him. Starmer, Streeting, Blair, Brown, all the lefty loons, Stephen in Belfast. Wes Streeting's gone very quiet, hasn't he?
I think the thing with Mandelson, he's been around the block so long amongst them all. He is linked to all of these characters who are now at the helm of the Labour Party, all the people who have been at the helm for however long. He was the guy who they wanted to get on with because they thought not only could they dish him a job, he could dish out jobs to them. I think Wes Streeting's probably in very serious trouble. He's very much linked to him. Well, we saw the kissy texts and what have you.
Don't you do kissy text to Kemi Badenoch?
Oh,
do you?
I'll send you one when I get out. I'll see how it goes down.
Just been with Jezza, Kemi. Love you. See you later. Morning to Damon from Wigan. Morning, gang. Well, you're included. This episode with Mandelson and Andrew is such a massive stain on our once great country. How can we trust any politician or official in very high office? And I don't believe this will ever stop with Mandelson and Andrew. The world must be disgusted with this country at present. Sort of agree with that. I really do agree with that. And I keep bringing it back, and every day we think, we can move on. Right? And there are other news stories today. It is 4 years since Ukraine was invaded. We are going to be talking about that terrible story of the Nottingham killer released because of the colour of his skin. But every single newspaper, things can only get sweatier. Mandelson, Andrew. Now Mandelson faces the music on the front of the Daily Mail. Mandelson arrested on the front of the Telegraph. It's literally everywhere. But him, Andrew's so easy to just imagine you're in the pub. He's not. What I'm trying to say, but Mandelson, how much does he know? How much has he got? How deep does this go?
Well, I mean, the other part of it is you saw that PMQs the other week where Kemi lanced Starmer over this. He fessed up.
I was going to ask you, were you lot surprised on the Tory benches when he did when I did know? Because there was an audible gasp from the House of Commons.
Well, the other bit that kind of got a bit lost because they bottled it, but that afternoon, after he'd confessed at the dispatch box, was then a humble address because they were trying to prevent publishing all the materials they had on the vetting. The fact that Starmer was going to send those MPs through a lobby to vote to cover up documents that will expose all this, it's just absolutely rotten. It stinks. There should have been no second thought as to him handing over all this material.
Well, that material, actually,
this
is in the news as well today, because Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, says that, you know, these documents will soon be released. This is going to put pressure, like the Epstein files with Trump. They need to get those out. Of course, he was going to stand up and go, well, we'll decide which ones to release. No, you bloody well won't, because it's a cover-up. But I will say one thing, which I didn't think I was going to say. I've been super critical of the police in the last few months, and quite rightly, I think, when you can't find one and you can't report a crime. I think they've got these two things right, and I think that anybody weirdly, and I think that anybody who knows anything is definitely going to have their collar felt, and I think that's a great thing.
Well, the one thing that will happen at the end of this, hopefully, is that people will see justice happens. No matter who you are, these guys are going to be held to account. There's going to see real consequences for what they've done.
Your boss stepped up to the plate yesterday. No mention of you. Morning, Kemi. Brilliant.
This is the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. Watching the man who he appointed to the highest position in our diplomatic service getting arrested by police, I think, is an image that's going to stay with all of us for many, many years to come. And when people think about Keir Starmer and his premiership, they will see the arrest of Peter Mandelson as the defining moment. I think that the fact that I asked him if he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson just a few months ago, and he said yes, despite all of these allegations being known, only to see the man arrested shows that the Prime Minister has a terrible judgment. He's weak. He could have done more. He has not released the information around the files. Instead, he sacked the person who was supposed to be overseeing the release. I think that shows what kind of person the Prime Minister is.
She's not wrong, is she? We have to obviously make the point repeatedly throughout the morning. You know, when you are arrested until you are charged and found guilty, then that's the case. This is an ongoing investigation, both for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and for Peter Mandelson. But pretty strong words from Kemi Badenoch there.
She's spot on as ever. And actually, when
Stop trying to get a promotion. She's spot on as ever, is she?
She is.
No,
she is. But the reality is, if it weren't for her knocking hell out of him at PMQs, if it wasn't for that vote forcing these documents to be released, we might not be seeing it. He might be getting away with more stuff. He might be able to hide more of this stuff. The reality is she's holding him to account. She's doing the business. She should be number 10. She'd sort this out.
Oh, he's making a case. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. It's 6:23. So you're waking up to the news that Lord Peter Mandelson released late overnight on bail after he was arrested for allegedly passing secret government information to the paedophile financier, of course, Jeffrey Epstein. New claims today in the papers that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor charged his massages to you, the British taxpayer. If you're a hard-working Brit just about to get in your van, you've done a night shift, you paid for Andy to get a good rubbing, but it wasn't, I'm afraid, a very happy ending. Morning, Lee.
Morning, Jezza. This week with Mandelson. Listen, 100%, mate. He'll chuck everybody on that bus. 100%, he'll chuck every one of them on that bus. I'll bet you Starmer's sweating more than Prince Andrew does. Watch this space.
At what point do you accept that diplomacy has failed and that military action might be needed, and perhaps even the use of bases in this country for American fighters to go to Iran?
So those talks are underway, and we hope that they're a success and that they really do yield results. I can't comment on hypotheticals as to what might or might not happen into the future. You know, government ministers don't comment on potential military operations or what that might involve. I mean, the only people that would benefit if we were to do so would be our enemies, so I can't do that, but I can be clear that, you know, we want to see those talks go well.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:26. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, is grinning. He's here this morning. Mandelson released on bail. Thank you, by the way, to Anna in Surrey. Bail, the difference between bail and being released whilst conditions continue or discussions. Bail has conditions to make sure that he doesn't leave the country, enter a certain area, intimidate or interfere with witnesses, or do one. That's very... So there you are. So is that more serious? I don't know. Fact of the matter is, I'm not a legal expert, but both Andrew and Mandelson have now been felt... have now felt anyway, the police have arrested them, and we'll do it ongoing. Neil says, none of my messages ever get read out, but I will try one more time. Well, I'm reading it out now. I've never... Yesterday and today, you have said that the Queen and King Charles must have known where the 12 million went. Of course they bloody well did, and the whole country did, as it was across every single newspaper in the land. Where were you then, Kyle? Lagered up in Barbados? I've never drunk lager.
But you've been to Barbados?
I had a house in Barbados, but I never have drunk lager.
I'm more of a Benidorm guy, yeah.
No, I'm not. No, Barbados, we don't drink lager. Do you drink lager?
Of course.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you trying to be one
Northern
of the...
Yob, yeah.
No, Northern... No, it's very... No, Damon, G-Spot shaking his head. Creme de menthe for him with a bit of champagne mixed in and a cigarette. 0344 499 1000. Carl, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Good to have you back. Just want to say that, you know, you ain't going to believe this, but the BBC, I always give them 5 minutes before, 10 minutes at the very most before I go to work. And all they talked about from the whole 10 minutes is just Ukraine. Now, I can understand that, Ukraine, you know, the anniversary. But all they talked about was Trump. Trump this, Trump that. It was all Trump's fault. Trump's Putin's mate. Trump this, Trump. I mean, we can understand why they hate Trump, you know. But, I mean, talk about over the top. They're literally burying themselves. They really are. They really are. And Charles...
I had to pay my TV licence fee yesterday, and I was struggling with my conscience. Just don't get me on it. Of course they won't talk about this. Like, I bet they won't talk about the next story, which for me is appalling. This is where I actually genuinely at 60 worry about this country for my kids. Front of the Telegraph, my friends, if you're waking up, Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane, who of course murdered in cold blood Grace O'Malley, Kumar and Barnaby Webber, two amazing students who were there, and the 65-year-old Ian Coates to death in June 2023, was released from a mental institution, are you ready for this, by mental health workers because they feared that detaining him still further, somebody would say that's racist because he was black. And we've got Barnaby's mum on the show, by the way. I have to say, Emma is an incredible light, and that is an interview you should not miss after 8 o'clock. But what does that say about us, seriously?
Well, I mean, do you know what? Racism is an evil, terrible thing, but the fact that as a culture, as a country, we've allowed the fear of being branded as a racist to undermine our legal system. It undermines policing. You go back to that grooming gangs situation where people have literally let vulnerable people be treated in such a way, be sexually abused by people without the consequences they should have felt because they feared being branded as a racist. How have we got to that place that our justice system is undermined by this? People are so scared to death of being questioned about being racist.
I can't wait to speak to Emma. I haven't spoken to her before, but I followed the story because a friend of my best friend's married to a woman whose daughter, without giving too much away, was at that university and was very aware of the whole thing going on and the impact. If we've got to a point in this country where getting a job interview is down to box ticking, if getting an appointment, if staying... I mean, this frightens me, right? This, and you know, we always talk about bringing people to jail. Whoever made that decision should go to jail. I don't care. I think the dignity that the parents have shown, and that piece of crap should not have been on our streets. And we live now, it seems to me, in a society, in a culture where we make excuses the whole time for perpetrators of crime, whether it's some idiotic ideological viewpoint or it's just madness, right? He shouldn't even have been out. How does the person who released him feel? How does that what was it, worker, mental health worker, right? Oh, I'll be told off for, oh, you might have upset her or him. He's had a hard time. I don't give a toss, right? They're my child, right? Hold on a minute. You've released somebody because you're fearing that they'll say, oh, if you leave him in jail and he's black, that's racist. No. He was nuts. Proven. Stay in your unit. Sorry.
I think when something like this happens to a member of your family, to somebody you know, it's the most awful, horrendous of things. But then to know that this guy shouldn't have been walking the streets anyway, to know that society, this country, its legal system has let you down and this man shouldn't have been out anyway.
Break your heart, wouldn't it?
Just devastating, absolutely.
Please don't miss that, though. Fantastic interview later. Emma Webber, mother of Barnaby Webber, both aged 19, him and Grace O'Malley Kumar, murdered along with Ian Coates by that vile Valdo Calacane. It transpires this morning, front page of The Telegraph, that he was released after mental health workers in Nottingham feared detaining him would be racist. Would love to hear from you this morning on that. 0344 499 1000. Josh from Warrington, good morning. How do you feel, Jez, about a Conservative MP, Matt Vickers, blaming all the media and by association yourself for what Starmer has done to this country because the media don't hold him to account? Conservatives, I could never trust you again. You need to be held to account.
This is a GB News interview I think we're talking about with Chopper. I think, do you know what I think? When you look at what's gone on, when you look at what Starmer's got up to, the British public did not know how bad this was going to get.
Well, I would stick my head above the parapet and say, if you listen to Carr on the BBC, what they're doing this morning, the fact is this station Talk, maybe others, but this station has always gone down the common sense line and has always talked about the very stories that people want to know about and should know about.
Well, there you have. I mean, the fact we just had the conversation about the BBC not covering the thing that is on the front page of every bloody newspaper in the country tells you something about some of the journalists in this country.
Does that not worry you, though, that our state broadcaster's not even talking about the two main news stories this morning? It's appalling.
Unbelievable. But that's the problem. These people are not being held to account. They get away with it. And these channels just profligate. They do not help hold these people to account. That is why we get some of the mess we've got. Nobody's talking about what this government is doing to the economy. Nobody's talking about all these people losing their jobs. Nobody's, because we're distracted by other things.
Well, David says, Andrew, Mandelson, media coverage, a very convenient distraction for Starmer, moving the narrative away from our disastrous economy, our defence failings and what's going on in this country. But the fact is, the Mandelson thing's not moving it away from Starmer. It won't do on this show this morning because I want to bring it back every single time, peeps, to the fact, what does it say about Keir Starmer's judgment? Ian, good morning.
Morning, Jezza and Matt. Great show. Ian from Unfair here. Now, am I the only person that thinks Pete Mandelson looks like the hooded claw from the Hanna-Barbera Wacky Races advert? I was just waiting for him to pull his coat over his face and saying, I'll get you, pit stop, as he were being led away by police. Anyway, it's going to be a great watch while we see all these lefties disappearing up their own orifices and flailing to cover their own backsides. Get your popcorn out, because it's going to be one hell of a watch.
It's all about the arse with him this morning, isn't it? It's true. David Aberdeen. See, Dave, I'm not sure I agree with this. I hope Starmer is going to push through legislation to strip Mandelson of his title like he wants to remove Andrew from the line of succession. Maybe all of that happens, Dave. I'd like to know how our Prime Minister thinks it's acceptable to employ that bloke in the first place. I have to come out on the side of Kevin Badenoch this morning. How can this man have the audacity to tell us that he's the right person to lead this country if his judgment again and again and again is at best questionable, and if we're being completely honest, he gets everything wrong?
Everything. I can't unsee the Dick Dastardly thing now. I cannot unsee the pit stop thing. But I think you're right, everything goes wrong. And actually, we're talking about this vile individual today, but more broadly, we need to be talking about what this government is doing to this country. Not only is he failing his judgment in the appointments he makes, he's failing to take this country forwards. People are paying record levels of tax.
Yes, true.
Yesterday, we saw the stuff about SEND. The one thing you want when you pay all of your tax, you want to know that you've got police on the streets, we've got less police on the streets. You want to know that the most vulnerable kids are being looked after. Yesterday we got the news that they're removing educational healthcare plans from special educational needs kids. Like, it's all going wrong. He appoints the wrong people. He runs the country in completely the wrong way. Everybody's being taxed to death. It's true. And you're getting sod all more in return.
Let's just move it to one other story before we bring in Kinsey. Oh, by the way, hello to Bill. He says, Starmer's Magnificent Seven, Jez, Mandelson, the Chagos Islands, Mr Ali and the Free Gifts, the Housing Minister, Waspy Ladies, Chinese Embassy. That's it. There's a load more.
The farmers, the winter fuel. Yeah, we go on.
Honestly, stop smiling. Jez, I'm a royalist because the alternative is far worse, or even alternative, and could be summed up in 2 words. President Starmer, do me a bleeding favour. Bill in Cheshire, by the way, I agree. Nottingham student killer not sectioned because of racism fears. What's become of my country? Unbelievable. 2 young lives lost. And a third, Ian Coates. Let's remember that. I think it was almost a year ago that the Supreme Court made that crystal clear judgment on biological sex. But still the NHS, that incredibly efficient organisation that uses its money so well, are allowing staff to use several examples of pronouns, because I was told the Supreme Court said man or woman, didn't they?
Well, we had the whole Darlington nurses thing come to a head, didn't it? You know, it's unbelievable that people in that workplace...
I, me, she, her, he, him, they, them, z, zir. What does that mean? I don't know. Zem, zem, or it's... It's. What are you? What a load of old shit. Honestly, can I say that word? No, it just does my head in. We've got killers being released from prison to murder innocent people because, he's black. We've got Muslim men saying to a British policewoman, get out of our area, it's Muslim. We've got a 4-year anniversary of a horrendous war in Ukraine where innocent people are losing their lives. We've got a government that is about as successful as my stomach is when I eat certain things. And yet there are people with this... Honestly, I can't do it. What does it matter?
Absolutely infuriating. But it's all distractions from what we should be getting on with. You see this horrific case of this killer being released. Yeah. You see all the talk of the pronouns and all this messing around, all this messing around, and actually
I'm sorry,
the day
Christian,
job gets
it's so frustrating. Yeah. We're both trying to avoid saying there's so much more important things to do, isn't there? So do you have to do that in Parliament? Do you have to have your pronouns on your what's-it?
Well, I haven't got them on mine. I think there would be discussions in the office if our lot started doing it. I think our lot all have sense. The guys who work in my office all have a bit of sense.
I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I'm going to ask through the glass. Damien, what are your pronouns? He, him. No, he actually told me the second word was off, and I completely agree with him. Right. Christian? Sir. Oh, Mark? Hershey. Good. Nice chocolate. 037... Do you see what I did there? 0344 499 1004. Your voice notes to Christian, get them in. 87222 on the text. And next we'll get an update from the United States, from Kinsey Schofield, this royal story. We will be asking the woman that knows, have you ever had a freebie massage? We're back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
She certainly is the Queen of Westminster on from 10 o'clock. This is JK on Breakfast. Welcome back. You're waking up on Tuesday, the 23rd of February, my friends, to talk the home of common sense and of alarm clock Brits. And the news that Peter Mandelson last night was very publicly arrested. He was released on bail, allegedly for passing secret information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Claims as well this morning that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor knows no sort of, there's no realm of sort of normality about him. Apparently charged personal massages whilst working away as a trade envoy to the British taxpayer. Let's cross to the United States, to California, to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Morning, Kinsey Schofield. How are you?
Less soft power, more soft lighting in that spa. JK.
I want you... this is brilliant. I like role play. That didn't sound right, but I think I know what I'm talking about. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, page 2 of The Sun today, used taxpayers' money for massages whilst working as the UK's trade envoy, ex-civil servants thingy. Now, I'm sure many people, being very honest, have put certain things down on expenses. Have you ever put anything outrageous on expenses?
No, I am a Southern Baptist. That getting caught doing anything wrong terrifies me.
Right. OK, well, that's very honest. I've never, ever put a massage on expenses. Other things, maybe. But he's got some front, hasn't he, mate? Really? And this is just another headline, another day. And I was talking to Matt Wilkinson, the Sun's royal editor, yesterday, and this story's going nowhere, is it?
I mean, I just think that Andrew heard public service and thought it meant the public service is him. Probably that went through his mind more than one time. He's becoming a meme. We saw it in the Louvre in the last, 24 hours.
You've got to tell this story because this is brilliant. This is absolutely... Have we got a clip of the Louvre? Was it a couple of... what happened? 2 people put his picture up or something?
Yeah, they framed his picture and then put a little plaque explaining that, he was a menace to society, basically, in the Louvre. And so if you popped by to see Mona Lisa, you got, like, a little extra bang for your buck. I'm sure
I don't think when we're talking about massages, you should be using those 2 phrases.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I did think it was interesting that some civil servants questioned the charges, but they were approved by senior staff. Somewhere there's an expense form that just says, like, purpose of visit, extremely hands-on negotiations, I guess. But he's just become a joke. I mean, we shouldn't be laughing about this. This is horrible. He's a horrible person. And yes, this is the worst crisis the monarchy has seen in my lifetime. But he's just become such a joke of a human being.
I never thought I would ever, on this station or this show, tell you anything that my old man told me, but the story about the expenses overnight, and Christians look at me with those eyes, I'm going to tell the story because my father is no longer here. He used to do sign off all the expenses for the Queen Mother's household, and this will end up in the papers. This will actually end up in the papers. This is a fact. He's no longer with us. And when the marriage between Charles and Diana was floundering, and I'll go as far as I can, he always used to go and see Granny on a Sunday in his car. OK, that was the Queen Mother. Mm-hmm. He didn't go and play polo. He used to go to Clarence House to see Granny all Sunday. I don't know if anybody else was at Granny's house, but this is an absolute shooter because I remember him telling me that one of the footmen would have to go and fill up the car and it would be 70 quid and he'd have to sign it off on a Monday morning. If your wife's in Highgrove, why have you gone to London to have tea with Granny every Sunday? Just saying.
That's a very good question, but I didn't think Granny liked Camilla.
What's Camilla got to do with this?
Oh, I thought that she was sneaking. Oh, are you saying Granny put gas in his car?
I'm going to plead the fifth. You've just swallowed the bait, but you might be dead. I mean, I'm just saying. True. That's a true story. And whether Camilla was there or not, who are we to know, Kins? But I have to say, it does, and the reason I told the story, it does again pinpoint how much has gone on and how much we don't know. And what I would say, and we were talking about this yesterday, whether or not the monarchy survives, changes, the demand for transparency is going to get stronger and stronger, isn't it?
It is. But I would also stress that we need to manage our expectations, because if this is an ongoing investigation, the king could jeopardize any sort of prosecution by saying too much publicly.
But as we said yesterday, you know, any lawyer with an ounce of credibility would tell Andrew Mountbatten Windsor that the way to get out of this trial, if there is to be one, we have to assume that he's innocent until anything is given, and that is an important thing to say repeatedly. As Paul Burrell did, as I told you yesterday, he simply said, well, I told the Queen I was taking the artefacts and the Diana, and the Queen, it's her court, she can't turn up. You could be saying exactly the same to Andrew, but for me it goes further. Did you see overnight that Australia and New Zealand backed the call to remove him from the line of succession? I don't know why that hasn't been done by the King instantly. That, to me, is... We're talking about a bloke who's been removed from public life. He's had all of his titles removed, whose sordid little dirty lifestyle is being rinsed across the world, and he's still 8th in line to the throne. Of course, he's never going to accede to the throne. Let's get him out. I don't know why the King hasn't done that straight away. Genuine comment there.
Well, it would require, primary legislation passed by Parliament. So Parliament would need to pass a new act, and then the bill must pass both houses. And then, the Commonwealth realms, so you've mentioned 2 of them, but there are like over 50, then they all have to agree on the same thing as well. So technically it's complicated, but I do believe it could happen. And I think everyone would commit to it, but it has to pass a new act of Parliament. It has to be approved by the Commonwealth realms, across the Commonwealth realms.
But you see, this is where I don't understand our Prime Minister, and you're not political, but here's the thing. They passed a bill within 5 minutes about British Steel, right? If I was not trying to curry favour, but if I was trying to do right by my people, I passed that.
Well, if I was trying to distance myself from Peter Mandelson and his tidy-whities, yeah, I would jump in there.
Can you ever get that view of his tidy-whities out of your head? Is it something that you think about the whole time?
Yeah, when I close my eyes, it's like Satan tattooed it in my eyelids. Whenever I close my eyes, it's just Peter Mandelson and his little panties, and I reject that image. I refuse it. I don't want it anymore.
I've never worn tighty-whities. I just want you to know that if you ever have a moment where you close your eyes and think, I'm joking. We've got a voice note for you. Karen, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. I think we need to understand what's really going on here. I think there is a coup d'etat to actually depose the king going on here. This Epstein Files thing goes very, very deep indeed. Now, if we get rid of the monarchy, if the monarchy gets deposed...
Yes, Kins, I don't think there's a coup d'etat. I disagree completely. I think we're talking about the British people and the British press, well, most of the British press, holding to task an organisation that still has a lot of love, but is going to find itself in the spotlight increasingly because of its behaviour.
Yeah, I mean, I would use Trump as an example of why the monarchy is so incredibly important, because it's just watching this man melt over King Charles and Prince William, knowing that he has such a hostile relationship truly with Keir Starmer. I think it's the perfect example of that soft diplomacy and why the British royal family needs to continue to exist, because Trump goes over there, gets his butt kissed by the monarchy, and now sends millions of dollars worth of money and tech opportunities to the UK. So yes, there's an argument for the amount of tourism the British royal family brings in. I am living proof of that. But I also think it's so much deeper, and that they stay above the political line. I think that that's important. I mean, do you want to have a country as polarizing as my country is politically? It's a scary, dangerous place. You're afraid to tell people who you voted for because you'll lose friends, you'll lose relatives, you'll lose job opportunities. And I think that what is so important about the British royal family is you have this patriotic symbol that everyone can rally around, no matter who you voted for.
I couldn't agree more. I fear, without getting political, that we are heading for polarisation in this country. Whether it is on the scale that it is in America, I think we are facing that because of some of the decisions that are taken. But yeah, listen, this royal story continues. People text you already. Is that true about you, Dad? Yeah, it's absolutely true. I'm a fan. And I completely agree with you. The business of the United Kingdom PLC is far safer in the hands, I believe, of the royal family than others. But It ain't going to go away, and there is just a sense, you'll be over soon and you'll feel it, there is a sense that I've never felt in this country about the royal family. Kins, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When are you coming?
I mean, I'm worried that I'm going to need to come sooner than later based on
Well, I'm
recent
not worried.
events.
I need you to come sooner than later. Thank you very much indeed. 10 to 7, Matt Vickers. It's true, isn't it?
I think, well, the thing is, we're disgusted seeing Mandelson. We're disgusted at seeing... But what does this project to the world? It's very sad for the royal family. It's very sad for Britain, actually, that people in the US looking at our country, looking at this monarchy that they were once very jealous of, and all that it stands for, and it's dragged through the mud. Our government is dragged through the mud by its association with this evil, terrible man. It's vile.
OK, 0344 499 1000. Text to 8722. It's Talk Breakfast. 10 to 7. Back in 3. We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense and free speech and alarm clock. Brits Matt Vickers is here looking at the papers. Just very, very quickly, this story today, Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane freed from a mental health institution because workers feared detaining him would be racist. He went on to murder, tragically, Grace O'Malley Kumar, of course, and Barnaby Weather, and also Ian Coates. And we're delighted to say that Barnaby Webber's mother, Emma, live on this show after 8 o'clock. Jane, very touched by this story. Morning, Jane.
Morning, JK. All these people from Prevent and the mental health units that release these people will all go and retire with a big fat civil service pension. There's too many inquiries, but there needs to be some sort of investigation. There's a lot of rot in there that they keep letting these people out because they're afraid of being called racist. If they're ill, they're ill. They need putting away, out of harm's way. And these pensions that these people sit there when they're 55, they need to be taken away from them because it will carry on and carry on.
Couldn't agree more. It's a terrible story, and Emma will be on after the show. Can I talk about the Green Party? Obviously, you know, we're talking nationally here. The Greens want to legalise... This is page 22 of the Mail. The Greens want to legalise prostitution, make pornography more accessible. A party policy document seen by the Mail reveals sex work should be decriminalised, whilst restrictions placed on sexually explicit material should be ended, and brothels could become a regular feature of Britain's high streets. Damien's just announced he's voting for the Greens in the next election. What do you make of this story?
Well, they're legalising drugs. They want brothels in high street. it's just not a serious party, is it? I think, there are, well, we have the debates. There's choices out there for the country to make about who they want running it. But the thing with the Greens is people think there's some nice, cuddly party that, is about potholes and dog mess. Actually, they have real views on things, and those views aren't very nice.
Don't they have open borders?
Open borders, well, you name it. They stand for everything we don't stand for, usually. But people get confused as to what they think there's some cuddly party that's going to hug some trees and make life great, and it's all going to be.
I think they're very dangerous. I think they should be called out. I mean, I think the Green Party is a real danger, and it would seem that people on the left have sort of gravitated towards the hypno-tits, as I call him, Zach Polanski, because they're not interested any longer in Starmer, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the alternative. If you're a loony lefty and the Labour Party isn't your home anymore, you can find a place with the Green Party. But all of these green things, this sort of drive for I mean, they will be the people who are blaming anybody for being racist about anything they might say. They are the people who want to do weird things with our bathroom setups in this country. They are the people...
Bathroom setups?
They are the people who
what do they want to do with our bathroom setups?
They're behind all of these agendas, these gender-neutral bathrooms, and they are the people who are behind all of those sorts of initiatives. But they all come with costs. All the green stuff comes with costs. This idea that the Labour Party is ridiculously green. They've given away their policy on the green agenda to Dale Vince. We were giving up on oil and gas in the North Sea. All of this comes with real costs for real people who are trying to get on with life.
I got into trouble from my eldest daughter, yesterday, because apparently I taught my grandson at the weekend to sing Drill, Baby, Drill, and he went to school and said it to his teacher, which is utterly fantastic, isn't it? By the way, the other story, I just want to put everybody straight. You'll remember the Supreme Court a year ago, crystal clear biological sex ruling men and women, but the NHS, we were telling you earlier, still telling staff they can use pronouns. I threw out I, me, she, her, he, him, they, them, but we also got Ziza, Zay, Zem, Zay. Anyway, just so you're all aware, because this will make you feel great on Tuesday, especially you, Matty, these they, them pronouns are considered gender-neutral neo-pronouns, sometimes preferred by individuals who identify as non-binary or gender-queer. ZZ programs are primarily used by non-binary, transgender, non-conforming individuals. I have no goddamn idea what that means. What does that mean? Who identify as non-binary or gender-queer?
The thing is, do you know what?
No, what does it mean?
No idea. The reality is, wear what you want, go to bed with who you want, but then this agenda of trying to decide what's going on with it...
What are you talking about? Go to bed with whoever you want.
This agenda actually doesn't help those people who want to live like that, because everybody just assumes that the entire noise and all these ridiculous schemes and ideas come from those people. If you want to, go out and do what you want, but don't dictate to everybody else.
I think that is the point, and I think the Greens do need calling out. They're not a serious party. A lot of people will jump towards them because they're frustrated with the alternatives, which I do get. So thank you, Matt Vickers. You're waking up very quickly. We'll finish with you. Lord Mandelson, now on bail. Do you think he's going to squeal? And I mean that. Do you think he's got a lot of mud that he could shed?
I mean, his tentacles are all over the Labour Party. But do you know what? The one thing that's going to happen, he's going to rot. He is going to get caught. It's catching up with him. These people who thought they were above the law, it's catching up with them. Mountbatten
wins overnight. Andrew Mountbatten wins. Apparently charges massages to the British taxpayer, but it's not been a happy ending, has it? You're loving me, aren't you? And also, listen, in the next hour, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith kicks us off, former Conservative Party leader, of course. We'll talk Mandelson, we'll talk the Royals. We'll also talk about 4 years ago today, Russia invaded Ukraine. We've got Ukrainian politician Kira Ruddock as well. We'll also talk about that appalling story. Nottinghamshire killer Valdo Callacane was released to murder Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber and Ian Coates in June 2023 because the mental health workers that were working with him thought that to detain him for longer would be deemed as racist. That is the country we are living in. That is what you're waking up to. It's almost 7 o'clock. If you want to get your voice into Christian, 0344 499 1000, your text to 87222. Thank you to Matt Vickers. We'll see you next week. He's off probably for a lie down. We're heading towards the news at 7. That is next on Talk Breakfast. Back in 3.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 7 o'clock. You're very welcome. This is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home, of course, of Alarm Clock Britain. Thanks for tuning in. You're waking up on Tuesday, the 23rd of February, to the news. You must have seen it. It's on the front of every newspaper. Lord Peter Mandelson, not sure how long he'll be a lord for, released on bail about 1 a.m. this morning, having been arrested yesterday afternoon for allegedly passing secret government information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. So, Mandy is on bail, can't leave the country, can't talk to any witnesses. That is an ongoing legal case, so we can't get involved. But many people are saying his day of reckoning is approaching. The big question for me this morning, well, there's two. How much did he know? How much is he going to squeal? And what does it say again about the judgment of Keir Starmer? Not a lot. 0344 499 1000. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's going to go on and on. Apparently charged massages that he had as a trade envoy to you, the British taxpayer. After 8 o'clock, by the way, really important, Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane was released. I mean, this is a shocking story from a mental health unit in Nottingham because workers thought that it would be racist to keep him in there because he was black. He came out and stabbed Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber and Ian Coates to death in June 2023 because of what? Box ticking. I have to say Barnaby Webber's mother, Emma, who's on the show after 8, an incredible woman. But what does that say, peeps? And also, this, I mean, honestly, over half of councils, despite the fact that there was a crystal clear Supreme Court judgment a year ago talking about, you know, basically men and women, NHS staff across the country are being told they can use lists of several pronouns. You could be I, me, she, her, he, him, them, they, it's not, it's... I've got no idea what it means. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Jez. It's Andy from Hull.
just on pronouns, I've recently decided to identify as a donkey. So my pronouns are hee-haw. Sorry, I do apologise.
Fantastic. We'll speak to everybody this morning politically and in terms of the royal family, but I need to know what they identify as. Also, you heard that story yesterday where that white policewoman very bravely confronted a group of Muslim men in Whitechapel in London. They said, don't allow that Christian preacher here. This is a Muslim area. She went, no, hold on a minute. Free speech works both ways. We thought we'd suss out what was happening in Whitechapel and sent our very own reporter Samara Gill down here. Here's a teaser from her that you will see later in more detail.
It is a Muslim area.
Yeah?
Lots of Bengali people and Muslim people live around this area.
If people say things that are offensive to Muslims, should the police be called?
Yes, definitely.
Is Whitechapel a Muslim area?
Well, apparently it is, but for them to even be proudly say this is a Muslim area, when Christians are trying to live there too, is totally unacceptable.
Very interesting. That was Samara later on. 7:05, 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes and your calls, 87222 for your text. We say a very good morning to former Conservative Party leader, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Morning to you. No, we're pretty good, really.
I'm going to start light-heartedly because everything's serious. What does IDS identify as?
Strangely, I suppose, I identify as a biological man. I have no intention of being anything else. And I think this whole nonsense is dragging on for political reasons. The reality is that the Supreme Court, as you said quite rightly, has been very clear about it. And yet still places like the NHS and the public bodies, who themselves were, I think, all these public bodies guilty of failing to take action when many of these rape gangs were discovered because they were worried stiff about seeming, as you've just seen in your little piece there, to be biased against mostly young Pakistani men, Muslim men, who were treating these poor girls like trash. And they were doing it, and one of their, you can see some of the stuff that came out. They talked, a lot of them talking to each other, the police, the council, politicians generally, talked of these girls as being sort of white trash, really. And these are very, very damaged kids that were in care. Care system is a terrible place to be. You don't want your any children in there if you can possibly avoid it. There are better solutions to that. But the reality is that those young girls were very damaged. And they were being treated like dirt. And yet we still have this stupid game being played out about the fact that a woman doesn't have to be a biological woman, and you have to be very careful about that. It's complete rubbish. The court was very clear that a woman is a biological adult female. That is clear. And that is how it should be. And I
completely agree. And you were the leader of the Tory party. I think it is an absolute stain, Ian, and I can't over-exaggerate this. People tell me I go on about it. I cannot believe that this country, under successive governments, have not got together and done something about these rape gangs and this inquiry. I think it is an absolute disgrace. To me, as a voter, it makes me question why. It makes me question almost every level of person involved. I think it is a disgrace to those girls and to us as a society, and I don't understand, and I think it's absolutely outrageous, and I'm so with you. I'll tell you something else that's outrageous in the news today, and I know you've a lot to say about it. You heard me say that Nottingham killer Valdo Callacane was released from mental health unit in Nottingham to murder Grace O'Malley, Kumar, Barnaby Webber and Ian Coates in June 2023 because a mental health worker, Ian, feared detaining him would be deemed racist.
You couldn't make this up. Sadly, Grace O'Malley Kumar was a constituent of mine. Her family, the most wonderful family. Father's a brilliant doctor. I mean, talk about being paragons of virtue in the community. This should never have happened. It's a disgrace. A young girl, a young woman, whose life ahead of her, snuffed out because officials were more worried about what people would think of them than doing the right thing. If you are in office, you must do the right thing, that you believe in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're cynical and you shouldn't be there. And it's as simple as that. And this is a disgrace. And this latest bit of information, I think, shocks me, and I'm sure it shocks most other people. My heart goes out to both families and to the terrible results of what happened. And a brave girl going to her boyfriend's rescue and vice versa. It's shocking in every regard, and I think it's high time we put this completely to bed and stop this nonsense altogether.
Couldn't agree more. And Emma Webber, as I just said earlier, Barnaby's mother, who's become a voice really for the families and has become such an amazing force, so dignified and so humble. She will be on this show before 7:30 this morning. Politically, I have to bring it round to the only story in town. It's on the front of every newspaper, but sadly not on the front of the BBC's coverage this morning. Lord Peter Mandelson released on bail about 1 o'clock this morning, Ian, after being arrested for allegedly, we have to say that, passing secret government information to that financer, the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, out on bail, which says a little bit more, but we have to be careful. Two things I want to put to you. How much has he got on so many people which would even have put him in the frame for that job? And more than that, Ian Duncan-Smith, what does it say about our Prime Minister's judgment? The guy backed him repeatedly, despite even his own party saying, don't touch him with a barge pole.
It's a fascinating study in a way. Forget all for a second, even the criminal position or the activities that may be criminal and may have to be prosecuted. But if you just look, here is an individual who was sacked out of his job in cabinet twice, and yet the Labour Party wanted to reappoint him, so he goes back in a second time, having been sacked for the first time, and he's sacked again. He's then accused of all sorts of peculiar dealings in China through his company, with I think with some Chinese entities who are appalling in what they do. Remember, China's a country that practices slave labour and massive executions, forced organ harvesting, etc. So he goes out and sets up a company that deals with these people. And all along, when you get to it, you actually find that each time he lets them down. Yeah. And he lets them down because he's been corrupted by the whole issue of power, I think, and by what he can do with it. And I think this will come out as and when there are any prosecutions. But I just can't understand why endless lessons have to be learnt, the same lessons again and again. I don't know whether, as you say, he has anything on anybody else. I have no idea whether that's true or false, and that's something obviously I can't comment on. But all I can say to you is you don't even need that. You just need to look at his track record.
Have you ever met him? Have you met him? What's he like as a man? Have you met him?
Yeah, I have many, many times, because, of course, we were always on opposite sides of the fence, and he was always known as the Prince of Darkness for a very good reason, that he was heading up basically the sort of attacks on other politicians of other parties. And under him, the Labour Party became unbelievably aggressive over anything, personal issues, problems. I called it, I made a speech many years ago after Blair had been in power for a couple of years, and I said, welcome to the new world of total politics. There is nothing that they won't attack you over or try and get to you, whether it's personal or anything else that normally was something that would be left away. No, anybody in your family was fair game now after that, and anything you do. So that's total politics, but if you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Absolutely.
That's the simple fact of life with him.
And that's my point, because of, I always think back to Gavin Williamson when, the tarantula in his office, and he was supposed to be this sort of, dark, studious person who had pressure on everybody, and it comes back to bite you on the backside. And I think that's what I mean about Mandelson. Do you think it's a wake-up call to other politicians, to people on all sides, his arrest?
Well, I obviously think that if people thought for one moment that behaving like Peter Mandelson was the right way to get on in politics, I think this has shattered that illusion. The fact is that it's a privilege to be a politician, a member of Parliament, and it's an even greater privilege to be in government as a Secretary of State or even as a minister. These are not jobs in quite the same way that somebody who goes off and gets a new job in another company somewhere in the private street. These are taxpayer-funded, important positions in which your decisions can change lives for the good or for the ill, and you therefore need to do it with a genuine belief that what you're doing is right, and to be as open as possible about it. And I think that sense of privilege goes, and that's why I always say to people, being a politician is not a career. If it's a career you want, be a lawyer, be a builder, go and do something where, you can swap jobs and go off and do other things, get higher salaries. Being a politician has to be a vocation. Mm-hmm. And if it's a vocation, then it has to be done on the basis that you genuinely believe, and I'm not just saying this in a way to sort of puff up everybody, myself included, it's just to say this very simply. it's a vocation because it's a privilege. You are serving people, you are not their master. And that's what seems to have gone wrong at times.
A lot of people, I think, in this country quite rightly are judging the royals and politicians. We'll talk about the royals in a minute. What does this say? You're a hugely respected parliamentarian. You've been a party leader. What does this say about our Prime Minister's judgment, Ian?
Well, I must say, that's the thing I can't understand. I do not understand why, with all that track record that Mandelson had, even if you don't know anything at all about the interchange, about these documents, about sensitive information, even not knowing that, there's enough evidence there. And I was one, I'm not, by no means, I was no particular forecaster of the future, but at the time when we heard he was going to be put into post in Washington amongst our most important ally, I and many others said, what in heaven's name are you doing? This man's already had been sacked twice. He's already had dark clouds hanging over some of his activities and his behaviour. And yet you are going to entrust with that man a whole series of important facts when you cannot have real trust in him. And it was astonishing. And I just thought to myself, I don't understand why the Prime Minister's doing it. Maybe he was heavily advised by those around him, some of whom have been sacked. But, you know, I asked one simple question. If Mandelson is now being looked at, if two of his close members of staff, the Prime Minister, have had to go, then why is Jonathan Powell still sitting in the same post? These people, including him, were ones that said to the Prime Minister, you should take on Peter Mandelson. Well, if the others are gone for getting it wrong, then many of us simply asked the question, Jonathan Powell, who was one of the architects of trying to get this Mauritian Chagos deal down the road, who was involved with Peter Mandelson in business dealings, etc., in China, which have caused real concern to many of us who are very opposed to the nature of China's appalling behaviour. My question is seriously, well, if you're clearing out, you need to clear out everything, and I think that Jonathan Powell should go too.
This is the reason I asked the question. I genuinely believe, I mean, all roads lead to... I mean, I haven't heard anything from Tony Blair. I think the rot goes deeper and wider than Mandelson, which is why I asked the question whether he will squeal. Do you agree that the rot goes wider?
Well, you never know until, as I say, like dry rot in a house, you never know you've got dry rot until you stumble across it or you're trying to deal with one patch and you suddenly realise it's riddled all the other beams. All I can say is I cannot in any way give some kind of advance warning about him because everything that I know about him was literally in the public domain. I simply say, you never know. Once you start digging away, you'll find out just exactly how deep this all goes. All I can say is the judgment of the Prime Minister here, I think, is desperately at fault. With all that he knew, even this idea that maybe he knows things about people, I have no idea, but even if he did, why are you putting him in a position where what he says to the President of the United States and to the officials can literally be the difference between war and peace? And I simply say this was a bad decision made by the Prime Minister, whose judgment is now being questioned on a number of things.
Couldn't agree more. I didn't feel, even at 60, that I'd be sat on a national radio station about to ask Ian Duncan Smith the next question. Taxpayers' money paying for massages plus expenses, travel costs, etc. Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor, the web of deceit continues. Parliament, I'm interested from your perspective. Yesterday, I think the Prime Minister of Australia wrote and said we should remove him from the line of succession. Do you think that will happen quickly through Parliament? Is there any way that money could be clawed back through Parliament? What view do you think Parliament will take of him and the royal family in a wider context, Ian?
Well, I'd like to separate him out from some of the members of the royal family and the institution itself at the moment. Obviously, the problem is that this individual has got this sense of entitlement and has proceeded to behave in a manner that is likely to bring many around him into disgrace as well. So my question really is this an absolute lesson about the royal family, or is it an individual who is in fact damaging the very institution which many British people, myself included, believe is one of the straightest and best in the world? The royal family, I think, have a huge asset to the United Kingdom. I don't genuinely believe that there's any reality that somehow he was involved with the royal family on any of this at all. This is an individual decision. He should be treated as an individual. But you asked the question, will Parliament do this? I don't know. I believe it will eventually have to happen because, as a factual point, he cannot be in the line of succession if he is no longer officially a member of the royal family. So that really is the key. But above that and beyond that, the reality is he's never going to be king, or the honest truth, he's never going to be anything in the future at all, because who will trust somebody who seems to have allowed himself to become corrupted to such a degree? That's about personality. That's about an individual making the wrong decisions and corrupting many of those around him. But I have to say, you know, for people like Princess Anne, His Majesty the King, and also his heir to the throne, Prince William, I think they do a fantastic job. And they work very hard, and I have to say that I still support the royal family.
I think
some elected bod like me, I have to tell you.
Listen, I do as well, but I fear that transparency is going to be a demand. Very quickly before we let you go, without too much detail, the Chagos Islands, Trump has finally come down on the side of it shouldn't happen. Of course it shouldn't. You're giving away sovereign land and 35 billion quid, you idiot. Britain, Telegraph were telling us yesterday, faces paying billions in compensation if Donald Trump forces Keir Starmer to backtrack on his Ludus decision. What's the latest in Parliament on that? Do we know?
Do you know, I'm sick to death of the government at the moment, pulling out this rubbish. Do you remember we were threatened that if we didn't do a deal with Mauritius, somehow we would face endless legal cases, that we had been told by the United Nations that we had to? No, we weren't. They prized, by the way, the chairman of that panel was in fact a communist Chinese woman. You couldn't make this up. Loads of those people that were on that panel were anti the UK even before they started. So let's be very clear about this. We had passed an exemption that we could not be proceeded against on any matter to do with the Commonwealth at the ICJ. And that is exactly how it is. So it was an advisory position. We don't have to and didn't have to do a deal with Mauritius. The reality is that the warnings that all those characters like Hermer and Starmer and Jonathan Powell have bandied around saying to us, and also that man Philippe Sands, who's going to gain quite a lot of money, I understand, out of this ghastly proceeding to try and sell his country down the road. All I would say is all of that amounts to nothing. Those threats are meaningless, and we would not and should not pay a single penny to anybody over those islands. We should stay there. The Chagosians want to go back there. They don't want to be Mauritian. They want to be British citizens. And I'm sick to death of every time you turn the television on or the radio, somebody comes up with another statement from the government. Oh, woe is me, we're all going to be damaged.
Ian, I couldn't agree more. I have to finish there, but my friend, thank you. It's always an absolute pleasure to get your view on everything. Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative Party leader there, 7:22. Let's go straight to the leader of Advance UK and say a very good morning to Ben Habib. Morning, Ben.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Been a while. Look at you sitting there with your flags. Can I just ask you, because I know you've got a sense of humour, over half of councils still failing to comply in this country with the crystal clear Supreme Court's judgment that a man is a biological man and a woman is a biological woman. The NHS are telling staff you can be I, me, she, her, he, him, they, them, z, zia, zem, zem. What do you identify as, Ben Habib?
I think you've got one guess. I'm a testosterone-fuelled male.
That's my boy. Welcome to the show. Blimey. Mandelson, talk to me. What does it say about the judgment of our Prime Minister, Ben?
Yeah, you know, people say judgment. I think it's worse than that. His judgment is not just being questioned. I think his integrity needs to be questioned. What the hell is going on in the highest corridors of power in this country? Mandelson was thrown out of government twice by Tony Blair. He was then wrongly, clearly, ennobled. He was then brought back out of obscurity to a frontline position as ambassador. And we now discover that he was effectively abusing his public office by making money out of handing over sensitive information to Epstein in return for, you know, as I say, for small amounts of money, but perhaps other stuff as well. And the question I've got is not just about the judgment of the Prime Minister, but what else has been going on in those corridors of power? What else has been going on between Epstein, between Mandelson and others, which is repugnant? We know, for example, Starmer has a desire or a preparedness to take gifts from people like Lord Ali. His wife gets dresses bought for them. He's prepared to open the front doors of number 11 and number 10 to hold parties there for Lord Ali. Now, that in itself is a form of corruption. Is it deeper than that? Have we got the beginnings of what's going to bring down a house of cards as a result of Mandelson being arrested? And Andrew and Mandelson are both going to sing like canaries.
This is
that
it.
There is no doubt.
You know, I tend to agree with almost everything you say. I keep using the word squeal. There is no way in my mind, whether Mandelson is found guilty or not, it's an ongoing case. You and I both know what that means. There is no doubt that the patronage he has been given is a result of because of the length of his tentacles and what he's got on so many people. And I am utterly convinced when push comes to shove, and they described him as ashen-faced. I'd say he was looking like he realises the game's up. He is going to spill, and I'll say something else which will go down like a lead balloon. All roads lead to Tony Blair, in my humble opinion, who we have not heard a damn thing from. Gordon Brown is, oh, it wasn't me. You brought him back, mate. Where's Tony Blair in all of this, Ben Habib?
Absolutely right. The devil of British politics. The man should be behind bars already for a number of things, including, of course, his illegal war in Iraq. But Blair is Teflon. Yeah. He seems to get away with everything, and so was Mandelson. But as you say, he will squeal. So was Mandelson. But he will now squeal. Let's see where this leads. And if Mandelson should turn up magically dead in a prison cell, we'll know that was not suicide.
Very interesting. I mean, I was talking to Cam, who works on the show, does a brilliant job earlier outside this morning, and he was saying you start to get the feeling that people across this country, Ben, are questioning so much about the institutions that perhaps we've taken for granted or just accepted for years. Parliament, the royal family. We know about the ongoing Andrew saga. Ian there saying he's a sort of one-off. I get that, but I have to say that even people like me, a royalist whose dad worked for the royal family, are beginning to think, what else did they know? How do you give your son 12 or your brother 12 million quid and think that you're not paying? I don't know, and I love the monarchy, but I think people are beginning to question it, Parliament, and just, I hate the phrase, but just the institutions that we've become so used to forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important point you're making, because typically in the past, if people got fed up with the government, they'd vote them out and a new lot would come in and we'd give them a chance to put the country right. But so badly have we been governed and so dishonestly have we been governed for so many years that people are losing faith in the very institutions of the country itself. And down that road lies a very, very dark path, because the British people at some point were very unlikely and very slow to be moved to violence or to direct action, is the other way to describe it. But eventually, if you lose faith in those that govern you and the institutions around them, the British people may take things into their own hands, and that would not be a good outcome.
I want to put something to you. I'm so chuffed you're on, mate. We've missed having you on. It's fantastic. Loads of people, well, the majority of people that listen to this station and watch this station want rid of this government, are appalled by a Green Party that today has called for the legalisation of prostitutions. They want to prostitute. Their prostitutes are going to be legalised, porn for everybody, free drugs, free everything, right? It would be fair to say the majority of callers ask me to ask the same question whenever I get you on, Rupert or Nigel. Advance UK, Restore Britain, Reform UK, all have their agendas and their thoughts. Is the danger not that if we carry on like this, the vote on the right will be split, and the unfathomable thought that the Labour Party, blocked or supported by the Greens or anybody else, could in fact get in again, Ben Habib?
So at the moment, we're 3.5 years off a general election. At the moment, what's happening on the right, I think, is a very healthy thing. We're having a debate amongst ourselves as to what it means to be right-wing. What are the policies that need to be delivered in order to save this country? There isn't a settled view on that. I was very pleased to see Reform coming out, for example, against the conversion of churches to mosques, and declaring that they would ban the burqa and the niqab. But these are not positions Reform would have held a year ago. These are positions to which Reform has been kicking and being dragged to that position by parties like mine. You know, we had a press conference, we had a conference rather for our members on the 7th of February in which we proposed the banning of the burqa and the niqab, the conversion of churches. And we went further, like things like, for example, in our policy on the restitution of British culture, we would prohibit swearing on any book other than the Bible when taking office. And you could have a neutral oath if you like, but you couldn't swear on the Quran or some other foreign religion. And these are things that we need to have a debate about on the right-hand side of politics. We need to get a settlement about where we see what we see needs to be done in order to rescue our great country. Once that debate has taken place, once we've got some kind of settlement, then I think we can worry about the electoral mathematics and how we make sure that we never get a Green government and that Labour is absolutely obliterated. What I can absolutely declare for you now, Jeremy, and for all your viewers, is Advance UK will robustly debate its position, will put forward policies that will save this country. But when it comes to the general election, we will be absolute adults and we will make sure that the government that is next, the next government of the United Kingdom will be a pro-British government doing what is right for this country, a 180-degree change in the way this country is governed. We will absolutely make sure of that.
I'm not, listen, we're friends. That is great to hear for many people listening and watching. This is me off the top of my head. That sounds conciliatory, that you talk about debate, you talk about settlement, you talk about the resolve of what needs to happen with this country. If I was tuning in, I'd say that all three of you are then saying we've got our positions, but at some point we would all understand that we have to in some ways get our heads together or do... Well, I don't know how we dress it up. There's no need to dress it up right now because the bigger picture is making sure that we never return to what we're experiencing right now. Would that be a good summing up?
That has to be the right outcome, and I'm sure the right outcome will emerge. It's too serious for it not to emerge. But in the meantime, we can force the Conservative Party and Reform, and Restore Britain and I are pretty much on the same page. But we can force these other parties to adopt our positions, and that's fantastic.
Great to have you on, mate. Seriously, that has to be the best red wall I've ever seen. That is posher than Clarence House. Listen, mate, great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed. The leader of Advance UK, Ben Habib, live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby. See another report this morning about war with Russia is inevitable, whilst our government at the same time is more concerned about pronouns, zia, wa, cha, they, whatever, right? You know, the Russians are absolutely laughing at us. The Russians don't have to invade us, mate. All they have to do is sit back and watch us destroy ourselves because our government are absolute idiots. Great show, mate.
This is the Political Asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m. right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:35. In a tick, that appalling story about Nottingham killer Valdo Callicane, who was freed and slaughtered 3 innocent people, young Grace O'Malley, Kumar Barnaby Webber, of course, and also Ian Coate in June 2023. We find out this morning, front page of the Telegraph, that the it's unbelievable. Mental health workers feared detaining Valdo Callicane would be deemed as racist, so they released him to commit the horror that has blighted so many lives. Barnaby Webber's mother, Emma, who is an incredible woman, with us. She's just joining and getting sorted. Thank you for your text this morning, by the way, 722 and your voice notes, 0344 499 1000. Mark, why, oh why of Bitter Ben and his anti-reform Farage bandwagon on your great show? I'll tell you exactly why, Mark, because there are all sides to every argument. I have said it repeatedly. This morning we have had the deputy chairman of the Tory party doing the papers. We've got Sarah Poach in at 8 o'clock. Yesterday we had Nigel Farage, we've had Ben, we've had a former Conservative Party leader and Ian Duncan Smith. If you're going to win an election, right, you have to be able to have those discussions. I thought the most interesting thing from Ben Habib there was the intimation that, you know, whatever happens, Restore, Advance, Reform UK, it is about those people thinking, how do we not put ourselves as a country back where we are now? Betty says, your story about pronouns, Jez, my pronouns are taxpayer and mug. Yes, I like that. Matthew Trowell, do you think he... No, I'm not doing it. Do you think he likes gardening, Matthew Trowell? What a totally crap joke. Morning, Jez. Brilliant question for Ben. I'm very pleased to hear his answer. What about Rupert? Yeah, well, there we go. Jez, Brian Ganaway. Did your dad work for the royal family? I would never have known. Thank you. Brilliant. Margaret in Norfolk, great point. Starmer instantly apologised to Epstein's victims. When is he going to bloody well apologise to the British grooming gang victims? Yep. Jeff in Dorset. I still can't understand why HMRC have not been involved with the 12 million quid that Andrew paid off Virginia Giuffre with. Because if I have a few hundred quid, it gets scrutinised, absolutely. Hello to Margaret. Many police forces and social services betrayed the grooming gang victims. Starmer and Labour are risk betraying them too. The worst betrayal of all. This would be their legacy. And finally, just for now, Keith in Wolverhampton, mate, all right, if I had £1 for every gender there was, I'd have 2 bleeding quid. Morning, Dan.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Dan from Kent. Couple of points on Andrew. Why is he still entitled to live on a royal estate and have, I presume, a valet, butler, chef? Isn't that taxpayers' money? And also, where's Sarah Ferguson in all this? Fergie seems to have disappeared. Kapoof, gone. Where is she? I mean, it's proven on the Epstein files that she was involved heavily with Jeffrey Epstein, but she seems to have completely vanished. Great show.
Couldn't agree more. Not about the show, about the fact she's vanished. She's going to be questioned, undoubtedly. My favourite moment from that voice note was poof! And he's gone. 0344 499 1000. 22 minutes to 8 o'clock. As I said, the country, the world was shocked by that evil, horrible, heinous human being, Valdo Callicane, who was released from a mental health institution in Nottingham in June 2023 because mental health workers, it says on the front page of the Telegraph today, deemed that if they detained him, it would be seen as racist. A public inquiry heard yesterday that Callicane was released and was free to murder Grace O'Malley, Kumar Barnaby Webber and Ian Coates. I'm delighted to welcome to the show a lady I've long wanted to speak to, Barnaby's mother, Emma. A very good morning to you, Emma.
Morning. Hi, Jeremy.
Great to have you on the show. I can't. I've got 6 kids. I don't even know how I'm supposed to start this interview. When you hear stuff like that, geez, man, what does that do?
For us and for me as a mother, it's devastated me. It's ruined our lives. I've lost my precious child, and it's there aren't words to describe how awful losing your child is, but to know the facts that we know now, to learn more about this, and I'm so glad you called him a vile. He's a vile monster. He's a vile, evil monster who knew exactly what he was doing, Jeremy. And yesterday was a really grueling day. And despite everything that we've already been able to expose ourselves and everything we already know, still more facts came out yesterday, and that was day one. And it's going to be a very long process, but we're here now.
Public inquiries, I mean, sitting there in the full view of the press, finding stuff out that legally you weren't to know about or didn't know about before, such a strain, as if the families haven't had enough strain already. Yes, he is a vile piece of crap, and he should never have been released, and I want to tread carefully out of respect for you, but what does it say about so much about our society, about the state of this country? I mean, it's a complete abject failure of your son of grace and of Ian Coates, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sadly it's the scale of the number of organisations and institutions that are at the inquiry, I think, sums it up, because there's, I think, 12 or 13 institutions, organisations, so 2 police forces, 2 hospitals. Then you've got the university itself, you've got the council, you've got the court system, you've got the prison system, the IOPC, the CPS, and it goes on and it goes on, and every single one of them, without exception, failed grossly. And what we heard yesterday was the litany of missed opportunities and ineptness of individuals and organisations who, as basic as, just didn't do the jobs properly. It was so frustrating and so disturbing to hear how many chances he had and how much was given to him, and they're relying on his word when he was clearly manipulating, stockpiling medication, refusing to take medication, lying about it. Do you know what, Jeremy? He's lied and manipulated, and he planned this whole attack. It came out yesterday, I understand, about, for finally, for the first time ever, a suggestion of race comes into this. And, that can't be the thing. It can't be because he was black. We have to deal with the facts. But I don't know if came out very clearly yesterday, the very big question about what was found on his phone. It's never been made public before. Do you know what he'd been downloading and looking at on his phone? He'd been looking at Dunblane. He'd been looking at Buffalo. He'd been looking at mass shootings. He'd been looking at what happens with body-worn cameras from the police and the emergency services. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was in Ilkeston Road. He was prowling and hiding in that area, because yesterday we heard countless examples and accounts of him stalking, assaulting, and scaring the living daylights out of students. He's a 30-year-old man at university, put in halls of residence with 18 and 19-year-olds. And those witnesses, those brave students, are coming forward this week to give witness. So it's not my hearsay. It's not our take on this, because clearly we think nothing but ill of him. But the facts will come out, and this person, he wasn't released. It wasn't like he was released from a mental institution and went on to do it. He was discharged in September 2022 because he failed to turn up to appointments. They were sending letters to an address he didn't live at. He constantly, and they knew he gave false addresses. They tried to ring and there was no answer. He said that he was abroad and wouldn't be back until October. His mother actually confirmed that he was in the country because she'd spoken to him. So he was discharged to his GP, and in his GP's witness statement, there was no red flag. There was no, this is a dangerous person who's been sectioned 4 times, violent assault. The girl that had to jump out of her window to escape him, she broke her back. She's got life-changing injuries. She wanted to press charges and she couldn't. She was not allowed to press charges. That will come out this week. You will see the scale of this individual and his reign of terror over a number of years in Nottingham, and the inability and the lack of care of duty for police officers and for mental health staff to just do their jobs. My son should be here today. He should be 22 years old. He should be here today. So should Grace, and so should Ian. Ian should be getting up and going fishing somewhere, enjoying his retirement. And it breaks my heart that they aren't. And it wasn't an accident.
There aren't many people that leave me speechless. I genuinely don't know what to say. I've a couple of thoughts, bless you. Litany of failure, state failure, right?
Yeah, failure. Failure. The easiest way to sum it up, Jeremy, is imagine anything that could go wrong and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And that's you can just see by police officers that didn't bother to put his name in, police officers that just chose not to take it any further, they didn't want the hassle of dealing with mental health related crimes.
Do you think it's symptomatic of a society that, in my mind, at the age of 60, seems to have got to a point where we make all sorts of excuses for the perpetrators of crime and seem to not give as much of a toss in any way about the victims, that it's all about apologising and making excuses for bad behaviour rather than punishing that bad behaviour? I started by saying this, and some people will be offended. This man should... there's an argument for the death penalty in such a horrific situation. But there will be people wringing their hands going, oh, this poor man had mental health illness. You've just outlined how this was systematically planned and missed. God, you're brave. God, I would be.
Jeremy, he was mentally unwell, seriously mentally unwell, but I would question you. Can you give an example of anyone that commits a crime like that isn't diminished responsibility? Diminished responsibility is overused and abused. The Law Commission have said that that's why it's being looked at again 20 years later. I understand there is a level of sympathy with people who are mentally ill. I class myself as mentally ill. I have to take all kinds of medication just to stay alive these days mentally. But with regards to him, there's every chance that the statistics prove that he'll be out within 5 to 10 years because he's in a hospital. He's in a hospital. He's not serving any punishment for his crimes, and he's mentally unwell. It's a mental health order, but it's still a mental health crime, and you can never take the word crime away from that.
And how do you feel that he was genuinely released or this story
discharged
because of the colour of his skin?
Well, I think that was part of the discussions. I think we have an NHS and probably a police service that are worrying about hitting targets. Rather than saying why are a particular demographic being sectioned more or being arrested more, and looking into the background, why are we just trying to tick beds? I think they wanted their beds free as well. We found out yesterday of the community mental health team, nobody wanted anything to do with him. They were so scared of him. They were terrified to deal with him. They were even given notice that they were not allowed to visit him on their own because he was so dangerous. But this is somebody that they deemed okay to discharge. He was left in the community at will. So that's it. But more will come out.
To lose a child is beyond comprehension to me. To have to then sit through, as you said, and it was only day one of an inquest, an inquiry that will basically outline systematic failure at all levels. How do you do it? A genuine question, just parent to parent. How do you do it?
It's a good question. I don't know. I have to. I guess it's because I'm a parent, because of Barney. The little bit I have left of him, he's in here, and I have his brother, who's going to be 19 this year. So. I'll do it for my boy, but I'll do it for Grace and for Ian, as do the other families. But this will be, I can't say we want, this will be a turning point in society, Jeremy. It really has to be, because we're not going to stop crime, we're not going to stop tragedies, but with things like this, so many things could have been changed, and Barney, Grace and Ian would be here today. Wayne and Sharon wouldn't be facing the terrible injuries and lifelong changes that they're facing, and to just know that monster is sat receiving his benefits. I believe watching the proceedings yesterday and having to sit there with his mother and brother, only steps away from me. It's everything's brutal, but we'll get through it somehow.
Much has been said about this case. You are incredible. It is an honour to have you on this show. Please, we'd love to continue to have contact and know what's going on, and just love and respect completely, and thank you. Emma for being on the show. Emma Webber there, mother of Barnaby Webber, who along with Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates was stabbed to death by Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane, a heinous man who it transpires had planned all of this. Social services and medical staff were too scared to deal with him, so they released him into the community. I agree with Woody and Melton Mowbray. Says the people that made that decision, they too should be doing jail time. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. You know, every now and then you just stop, don't you, on a show like this, and you think, we can moan about the Prime Minister, we can talk about all sorts of things, and then you speak to somebody like Emma Webber, Barnaby Webber's mother. How dignified, how humble, how decent, how right, how correct, how just amazing woman. Thoughts with her and her family. And I think it's really important in the society we live in to understand what she just said, that over the days and weeks that will follow with this inquiry, it will come out that that vile, heinous human being should not be excused by the lefties who'll go, oh, he's mentally ill, this was planned. And the people who released him because they were too scared to deal with him, do they have blood on their hands? I've no idea, but honestly, for Emma, total respect. It is 8 minutes to 8 o'clock. So much to come this morning on the show, by the way. In the next hour, Sarah Pochin, the First Lady of Reform, Runcorn and Helsby, the lady that won that by-election, will be on this show. And also, it was 4 years ago today, of course, that Ukraine was invaded by another fiend, Vladimir Putin's Russia. Kira Ruddock, Ukrainian MP, who's been a voice piece for the Ukrainian regime, will be on this show after 8 o'clock this morning's 0344 499 1000. Very good morning to, oh, this is new, Julia Lopez, Shadow Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
So you shadow my uncle, Peter Carl. That's a joke, by the way. I have nothing whatsoever to do with the Labour Party.
Breaking news. I was not aware.
No. Can I just ask you, I'm guessing you just heard Emma Webber on the show there about her son Barnaby, who along with Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates was stabbed to death. What's happened to our society, Julia, that a killer is released, cast out and not dealt with because people are either too afraid or just don't know what to do? I mean, that is an appalling indictment of where we've gone as a society, isn't it?
Well, I think that's right, Jeremy. I only caught the second half of that interview, but what I heard was absolutely heartbreaking. Any parent listening to that would be terrified thinking that the same could happen to their child. And I think anybody in public service has to be completely honest and transparent and create an environment of transparency about why these things have happened, but also the sort of decisions that are being made daily. Are we making the decisions for the right reasons? Are we thinking about protection of the community over and above the needs and issues in relation to an individual? Are we being honest about what's going on with that individual's care and what is right, as I say, for the whole, not simply for an individual who may have mental health issues but also can present a very, very serious danger to the public? I have had a case in my constituency where there was a very brutal attack. we cannot let mental health override the fact that this is people's lives that are in danger here, and we've got to make sure that the system responds to those concerns properly and doesn't simply think, as I say, about the individual's needs above and beyond everybody else's.
It just strikes me, Julia, that we've got to a point, as I said to Emma, where we make excuses now, certain parts of our society, for the perpetrators of crime and not for the victims. Yes, Callaghan was mentally ill. It was also, if you study the evidence, and more will come out, it was absolutely planned. They found what he'd been searching for, death and Dunblane and all that. She said it. It's an extraordinary story. Emma's an incredible woman, and we'll do more about that. But yes, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Must be an interesting place to be Parliament at the moment, with Lord Peter Mandelson arrested last night.
Oh.
And your leader...
Well, I know.
Your leader's the one that got it out of Starmer, that he knew... What does it say about the Prime Minister's judgment that this piece of crap was allowed to come back at the third or fourth time?
Well, I know, I find it extraordinary. I mean, it was September that Starmer reiterated that he had full confidence in Mandelson, and it's only because of Kemi's pushing and the mechanism of the humble address that we have the opportunity to have a look at the documents that surrounded that. But regardless of the documents, Keir Starmer knew that there was political risk that came with Peter Mandelson. He made the appointment with open eyes. It's not the first time that Peter Mandelson has been removed from his position. He is a figure of political risk. Gordon Brown had issues with him. Gordon Brown chose to bring him back, actually, and now he lives to regret it. And you know, it's an interesting combination of the architect of New Labour. There's more stories coming out, not just about the time of New Labour, but also this outfit called Labour Together. Your listeners may not have seen. There's another minister who's now under fire because of how he's acted in Labour Together, which was the vehicle which effectively got Keir Starmer elected to the leadership of the Labour Party. Labour is tearing itself apart on this. I don't know if you saw, Jeremy, but yesterday in the Chamber, it wasn't the opposition that was giving the government the hardest time. It was Labour MPs who are absolutely furious. All of the Corbynites now popping their heads up, reminding Labour of exactly what Keir Starmer did to get power, and the poison that is effectively still in the government because of that time. And now you've got the combination of that with Mandelson.
I couldn't agree more. We've got Carl Turner on, and there's one thing I just want to say to you very quickly. I wish we had more time, but you think about the fact that oh, here we go. Somebody with a banner. Yeah, no doubt behind you.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, no, don't worry about that. You think about the fact that he gave Mandelson that job despite knowing about his links to the paedophile, and then you add to it, as so many of my listeners say, that still this man will not call a national inquiry into the grooming gangs, and you can quite seriously understand the people that say, you know, for a human rights lawyer, he doesn't seem to give a toss about young people, does he?
Well, I think this is the thing. I watch every week as he stands up and is a man that has this sense of, I'm a man of dignity and of decency, and that was entirely his pitch, not just to the Labour Party but also to the country. And I think it's a pose. It's a pose that actually is not authentic. He is able to make very politically ruthless decisions to make sure that he gets into power, and then it turns out that they are disastrous decisions. And the problem for your listeners is that this means that this man is not governing. There are so many rebellions now stacking up, which we're going to see over the course of the coming weeks, rebellions that are going to be happening over immigration policy. We've seen the problems that are being caused by Labour MPs not having the guts to take through welfare reform. There's another very good rebellion building up over jury trials, because there's another disaster waiting to happen.
Julia.
So this is not just a sort of Westminster story. It has serious consequences to the governing of the country.
Listen, I would love, please come back. That was fantastic. I agree with everything you say. Julia Lopez, thank you. Morning, Johnny.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Johnny in the van. Just listening to your interview with Barnaby Webber's mum, Emma, learning that that guy that killed her son was released because it would be deemed racist is just absolutely shocking. This wokeism is dangerous, mate. It's leading to people being killed. It's crazy. Deepest condolences to that poor lady.
So we do remain committed to the deal. The base at Diego Garcia is absolutely critical to our national security.
But we haven't already.
Critical, yes, but following a legal case that took place, that position of the base was put into jeopardy, and we need to set that situation right so that we can continue to operate the base at Diego Garcia to make sure we've got a clear legal underpinning for that to happen. But the base is critical to our national security, both abroad and at home. The actions on that base keep people here in this country safe from harm and safe from nations that would wish to do us ill.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of alarm clock Brits. Thanks for tuning in, as ever, with the news, with your views. That's what it's about. Free speech. Imagine 0344 499 1000 is the number for voice notes, of course. Text to 87222. So many people touched by that interview with Emma Webber. Talk about brave. The mother of Barnaby Webber, of course, who, along with his girlfriend Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates, heinously murdered by Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane in June 2023. A public inquiry started yesterday. How brave was Emma? She was saying that so much will come out. We have a world that says, oh, this poor man had mental health issues. They found on his phone he'd watched Dunblane, he'd planned it. Authorities who released him thought keeping him might be seen as racist, and anyway they were frightened of him. Have they got blood on their hands? Talk about dignity. Listen to this. Tom Stewart in Morpeth. I've just listened to the mum that lost her son at the hands of this vile, heinous man that took his life. I'm a man of older years, ex-army and firefighter, and I've seen all sorts of awful things. But I literally, Jez, had to pull over just now for a few moments after listening to Emma. It breaks my heart having to listen to the hurt and pain she and her family have gone through. And God, our country is in such a mess. I feel so depressed at where we are at. Zarina, thank you. I can't bear to imagine what it's like for Emma Webber. It seems to me that our whole way of life from top to bottom has to change. Data-driven targets kill people. Every industry, every organisation is driven by data. And the death of these three people highlights this fundamental flaw in our society. God bless their families. And just finally, JJ, thank you. So many kind words from people, quite rightly, for Emma. Jez, thank you for that interview with Emma. What an amazing woman. Hopefully the issues raised will affect changes, not the usual BS that lessons have been learned, etc. We have to jail the people who make decisions to release scum like that. Dave in Gloucester, sorry, these people who released Callacane because they were frightened of being deemed racist should be held to account. Good morning to Steve.
Hi Jeremy, Steve from Manchester. Great show as normal. I'm just listening to your chat there about that vile individual, Valdo Callacane. There was a reason many years ago we used to put people in mental institutions. It was for public safety. But what they seem to want to do these days is not put people in mental institutions who are clinically unwell, unsafe, have mental problems. They just want to put them on the streets and release them into the community. The world has gone insane. We need to bring back those mental institutions and put away people for the safety of the public. It's ridiculous what's going on, mate. Ridiculous. Great show anyway. Bye.
Thank you, Steve. We say a very good morning to the First Lady of Reform, a woman who won Helsby and Runcorn against the odds, and a lady in her new kitchen that never gets used. Because look at that. Look at it in the background. Oh, I see, morning, Sarah, poaching over your left shoulder. I see 3 bottles of wine. You're giving a look at it. There it is, all stacked up.
Oh, my goodness. Your producer did not tell me you could see that. Oh, no. I'm so sorry, everybody, but you all know I survive on a diet of Jelly Babies, coffee and red wine.
That's true. You are the perfect guest. What many people don't know about my mate Sarah is you spent 20 years as a magistrate. I'd like you to respond instantly to that story, that interview with Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby Webber, who was callously murdered, heinously murdered by Valdo Callacane, who it transpires this morning on the front page of The Telegraph, was allowed to be released from where he was held, an institution, because mental health workers feared detaining him would be racist. She went on to say that so much will come out in the inquiry that he'd planned it, and that people who were supposed to look after him, or rather nurse him, pushed away because they were scared of him. What's your response?
Well, look, under a reform government, all of these people will be held to account, and it is still going on. And this is an example, again, of where institutions are failing the public. Nobody will be allowed to hide behind that racist ticket under a reform government. Nobody will be hiding behind this nonsense of being PC or, you know, we can't hold these people to account. We can't detain these people because in fear of being called racist. That will not exist anymore under a reform government. And yes, as somebody who worked in the courts for 20 years, it breaks my heart that things like the grooming gang scandal are still not being dealt with because people are concerned about being called racist. And quite frankly, every single day that goes by and these issues are not tackled, then more people will end up being killed. Every day, girls are vulnerable. Young girls are raped, tortured, abused. No one's doing anything about it. And it's an absolute failing of this system, a failing for the country, a failing for the British people.
It's quite interesting listening to Emma Webber, who, I mean, I think is probably the bravest person I've ever spoken to, and I've interviewed a few people in my life. To lose your son, but to then make it your life's work to to try and change a system. And she's talked, I mean, if you read the Telegraph, you just think, oh, somebody released him because he was black. Beyond that, on the phone, he'd watched Dunblane, he'd watched murder. I mean, I don't want to upset people. There are kids in cars, including mine. But this was systematically planned. The excuse of you're mentally ill. There are people who are mentally ill who should be detained. But no longer can we accept that mental illness in some instances or the colour of his skin should be an excuse. I believe, and I think I know she agreed with me, and I'd love your take, is that there's something systematically wrong with us as a country now, whereby we will make excuses for the Valdo Calicanes of this world, who frankly, in my mind, shouldn't even be. I mean, I'll have a debate about the death penalty. I don't believe that anybody, but some people say, oh, he was mentally ill. Well, lock him up then and throw away the bloody key, because 3 people's lives have been blighted. I fear that we've become so politically correct, Sarah, that we'd rather worry about his mental health than 3 people whose lives have been completely taken from them, and their families will have to deal with that forever.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what a brave woman. And as a mum of 2 boys myself, you know, it just breaks my heart listening to her and what she's going through. But how brave now to be able to speak about it. I don't even know how she's got the will to come on and speak about these things. But yeah, it's a systematic failing that our institutions have got so woke and so sort of, you know, so concerned about the victim. About the perpetrator, that the victims are left, you know, to suffer. And there will be more and more victims unless we start dealing with some of these institutions that are failing the public. And look, it is institutions ranging from schools, from local authorities, from social workers, you know, from the police, you know. And I went out yesterday on a raid with Cheshire Police. What an amazing police force. They are all about hardcore, back on the streets, locking up criminals. There's not a rainbow, you know, a shoelace in sight at Cheshire Police. And I love them to bits because all they want to do is catch the baddies. But, you know, they are up against it.
Are we allowed to say baddies? You might have disrespected them then, calling them baddies. That's a bit unfair. No, I'm with you. Lock up. You deal with crime by putting more policemen and women on the streets, getting more intel, sending the police out to nick people. Before we talk about Mandelson, by the way, I want to talk about Zia Youssef from Reform. Big announcement yesterday in Dover. I know you're keen to talk about this, and why the hell shouldn't you? Yesterday, Zia Youssef announced that all face coverings, including burqas and hoods, will be banned under a Reform government to boost safety. And I'm not just saying this because we're mates. You were the one that stuck your head burqa-free above the parapet some months ago and got a whole load of rubbish from a lot of people, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've never, ever regretted that PMQ because it's such an important issue on 2 fronts. And as I said, I was out with the police yesterday and we were talking about facial recognition cameras and facial recognition technology. And of course, any face coverings totally deter the police from their ability to identify criminals through facial recognition techniques. And so banning the burqa is absolutely the right thing to do on several levels. First of all, on public safety. The police cannot do their jobs if faces are banned, but if faces are covered. But also on the grounds of it's a misogynistic tool for the suppression of women. And don't tell me there is anybody that disagrees with that. And thirdly, it is a way of dividing society. How can you integrate? Now, where I live in London, past 8 o'clock, I don't go out down there on the streets because all I see is women clad head to toe in burqas with their full face coverings, walking obediently behind men.
What do you say to people who say that is racist as a policy? Because what you're doing is taking away from people how they want to express themselves. Those women, you would say, in our society would be deemed as being, you know, controlled and obedient and misogynistic. But that's their culture. How do you answer that argument?
We will never integrate people from that sort of culture successfully in the country as long as they are dressed like that. It is threatening. It is not our culture. And if you live in our country, you live by our culture. I'm not suggesting for a minute that we don't respect each other's religions, respect each other's traditions, but nevertheless, that is threatening and not acceptable on our streets.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yesterday there was that story down in Whitechapel. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh my goodness, yes.
The Christian white lay preacher, never quite sure why they call them a lay preacher, but there we go, was out talking about Christianity. He was approached by a group of Muslim men who said, this is a Muslim area, get out. And a very brave female white police officer, whose male colleagues disappeared into the background, I noticed, stood up and said, no, freedom of speech is both ways. You have a right to your views, they have a right to yours, and was rightly lauded. Can I just say, by the way, that we sent Samara Gill down to Whitechapel. Very interesting. We will play that later. Don't go anywhere. But this is the point, is it not? The people who go, well, if you ban the burqa, that's racist. We're talking about integration not working. Integration works if people meet in the middle. If you don't speak our language and you refuse to comply to so much that is part of the reason you came here, then there's an issue. That's not racist to say that, is it?
Well, so many things I want to say. First of all, that policewoman, wow, hats off, absolute hero. She was calm, she was considered, and she stood her ground. Whereas, like you say, her male colleagues ran off. But yeah, those Muslim men were saying, this is a Muslim area. No, you are in Great Britain. You are in our country. It is all an English area. If you want to live here, you integrate with us. And I can tell you, I've been campaigning up in the by-election in areas that are densely populated with a Muslim population. And a lot of the people, when you open the doors, they cannot speak English. Now, how is it possible to integrate into our society if you cannot even speak our language? It is not acceptable. And it is also, and going back to the burqa, it's another way of suppressing women and keeping women in these cultures very, very isolated.
What would you say to the people that say, just hear me out, it's important we get both sides, that those women have the right to make that decision?
Those women are suppressed by men. And I have never, in all my time campaigning in places like Bolton, very heavily Muslim areas, those women are suppressed. And you're not telling me that any woman wants to be covered head to toe in a black blanket with a little, a little opening to see out. No. I don't accept it. And you know what? They can do it behind closed doors, but not on our streets.
How does that go down with the supporters of reform? Is it a policy that is very popular? Is it, because I had Nigel on yesterday and I was talking about the Zia announcement about 300,000 deportations per year, and I was saying, the left-wing media are already writing it'll be an ICE-style removal, and actually, that will cause huge backlash. And Nigel said, quite ready for a backlash. And Zia said, I'm quite ready for a backlash. This burqa thing, there will be a backlash. You're ready for that as well, right?
100%. You know what, Zia, he's one of my heroes. He will be awesome as a Home Secretary. Zero tolerance. And I know the British people want that. But let me tell you a little story of yesterday. So I was out with immigration officers when we were doing some raids in Runcorn and on vape shops. And do you know what? We found an illegal, unsurprisingly, and the immigration officers came out and told me that they had to give him what's called street bail. In other words, they couldn't detain the illegal that they found. And you know why? Because the Home Office have no capacity to process an illegal. So immigration come out with the police and trading standards and all the rest of it, find illegals, but cannot process them. So
but actually, is it, and I've done those raids for a television show, is it processing, or is it, Sarah, poaching will? Because let me just say, at the end of the day, you go back to what happened at the Bell Hotel in Epping in Kent, when the local council listened to the people and said, we don't want a migrant hotel, and won the court case, and our own government took the council to court and said that the rights of migrants were more important than the rights of the indigenous local population, which tells me that this government doesn't have the balls or the desire to get rid of illegal migrants. And one of the things that sort of a lot of people talk about the whole time is There has been positive migration in this country, right? I say this story every morning for a reason. I have a man who drives me sometimes who came to this country 40 years ago who is more angry about illegal migrants, right, than anybody I know, far more than you and me, because he did it correctly. Learnt the language, educated his kids, built a business, employed people, paid tax, and is proud of being in Britain. He's not building... Listen to Woody from Melton Mowbray. The thing is, Jez, I'm sorry, about integration is the fact that many of these people do not want to integrate. Why can't we understand they're not interested in our culture, and that's it, they're taking advantage, they're not interested? I mean, maybe that's a point to which we all get, Sarah.
Well, you look yesterday with that incident with the police woman and the Muslim crowd. They were saying this is a Muslim area. Yeah. That is not saying to me that they want to integrate. That is saying to me, get out and leave us to it. This is our area. That is divisive. It's secular. It absolutely is an insidious threat to our culture, and also, you know, to policing, to our law and order. Because when you get those sort of areas where you know that they do not want our rule of law to be there, that's where you get Sharia law. That's where you get Sharia courts, which we can't see. We can't monitor parallel legal systems being set up in this country. Absolutely will not be tolerated in any way, shape or form by a reform government.
Completely. So busy time. I think you're all over the place. Is there anything... Well, actually, I'm going to do something because I know you've got a sense of humour, and obviously you drink a lot because we've seen the 3 bottles of wine. I'm only joking. Over half of councils are still failing to comply with crystal clear Supreme Court biological sex ruling, almost a year. NHS are still giving out lists of what staff can do. They can be I, me, she, her, he, him, they, them, Zia, oh no, they, them, or it's tits. Sorry, it's it. I got that wrong. Sarah Pochin, what do you identify as? I'm a one-legged donkey with a headache this morning. What are you?
Look, what I identify as a hardcore politician that is going to sort this country out, and all of that woke nonsense will be binned under a reform government. DEI out the window. We waste millions of pounds on it, writing these briefs, thinking up these names. You know, our poor police have to go through DEI training for all these words. Absolute nonsense. We need to get some common sense back into this country. There are 2 sexes, a man and a woman.
Love having you on, sweet. Have a great day. Thank you as ever. Sarah Pochin. Runcorn and Halesby, the First Lady of Reform. So many of you responding to that interview earlier with Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby Webber. Today in the newspapers, yesterday was day 1 of the public inquiry into how Nottingham killer Valde Callacane was left... Well, he was free to roam. He was let out to slaughter Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber and, of course, Ian Coates. Emma Webber, Barnaby's mum, said so much is going to come out. This was planned. The mental health, yes, he had issues, but the staff were scared of him. It is about accountability. It's a horror story. I asked her, just as a dad, right? I asked her how she copes on a daily basis. Have a watch, have a listen.
It's a good question. I don't know. I have to. I guess it's because I'm a parent. Because of Barney, you know, the little bit I have left of him, he's in here, and I have his brother. He's going to be 19 this year, so I'll do it for my boy, but I'll do it for Grace and for Ian, as do the other families. But this will be. I can't say we want. This will be a turning point in society, Jeremy. It really has to be. Because we're not going to stop crime, we're not going to stop tragedies, but with things like this, so many things could have been changed, and Barney, Grace and Ian would be here today. Wayne and Sharon wouldn't be facing the terrible injuries and lifelong changes that they're facing. And to just know that monster is sat receiving his benefits. You know, I believe watching the proceedings yesterday and having to sit there with his mother and brother, only steps away from me. It's everything's brutal, but you know, we'll get through it.
What an amazing woman, Emma Webber. Let's go to Brighton. Paul, a very good morning. Just a minute on Talk Breakfast. What you say?
Yeah, hello, Jeremy. Yeah, brave lady. But this, the problem with society now, and I hope that this is going to be righted at last, is lack of accountability. You know, right from we've got the Mandelson thing, we've got the Prince Andrew thing. I hope this is a start of things changing, and that people are forced to be accountable for their actions, right down to things like social services, where there is obviously a major failing in the Nottingham situation. I mean, if I can just briefly say, Jeremy, here in Brighton, over 50 years ago, we had a poor child that was killed by a stepfather. And the headline in the local paper said, "Never again." And yet, 50 years later, we still have Baby P, Victoria Cumberley, and terrible tragedies like that. But no one's held accountable. You've got Paula Venables and the post office scandal, not accountable as yet. You know, why aren't people in the public sector being made accountable? I run my own business.
I think what I would take, and I'd love to have more time, you know how busy it is, but I think what I take from your call is something that I absolutely adhere to, which is across much, politically, institution-based, whatever you want to say, the British public, the silent majority, have woken up and want more transparency. They want to have justification. I believe we've turned into a society, and I've said it all morning, that makes excuses for the perpetrators of crime and doesn't do enough for victims, and that has to change. Paul, thank you very much indeed. To the break. Karen, good morning.
Good morning, Jazz. Love your show. My mum had a cousin years ago who used to steal lipsticks from the shops, that's all. And she was put into a mental institution for kleptomania, and she was there until she died. So, you know, you can see how things, I mean, that was so wrong, that was terrible. But now they're letting out dangerous people because they're frightened of upsetting a certain member of the community or a certain group in the community. We're living in clown world, Jez, unfortunately. Anyway, mate, keep putting it out there because you're doing a great job.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 to 28. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is JK on Talk. Breakfast, the home of common sense and free speech. And Oliver William Robin Carl is sat in the car outside his school, refusing to go in until Daddy says, have a great day. Have a good one, little man. And Rissi Roo, I'll see you in a bit. You want to do that for your kids when you hear that story of Emma Webber. If I could give a medal out right now, it would be to Barnaby Webber's mother. In fact, to anybody who's suffered from this. But I'm not looking at the other side. I'm giving you response as it happens. This is anonymous, but there's a reason for it. Jez, my wife worked at the same hospital where Calla Kane was held, albeit not on the same ward. They are understaffed, overworked, and given absolutely no support from within the NHS as they are skint. My wife took a 3-year degree to try and help these people, only to come home in tears after an 11-hour shift with no breaks. She was beaten up, spat on and abused. I absolutely agree, Jez, that this man is abhorrent, but the buck should surely stop with the government. There is simply not enough money being pumped into the mental health system. I will back that message by telling you that I once did a show with police for the weekend, and it was about the time that Spice was out and about. But anyway, one guy we had to arrest 5 times in one night and take him to the hospital the whole time, keep taking drugs, mental health issues, smashing stuff, causing all sorts of problems. Is that the police's job? Do we need to look in far more detail at the whole system? But I have to say this, right? There is still that argument that common sense has disappeared, and that somebody as heinous as Valdo Calacane, oh, let's let him out because of the colour of his skin or because he's mentally ill. No, let's lock him up and throw the key away, because patently anybody with a brain cell would have told you that this guy is a goddamn liability. Can I just throw to something that I want to do very, very quickly? We mentioned that story yesterday about Whitechapel, the Muslim men throwing out the Christian white lay preacher, and the police one very bravely saying free speech works 2 ways. Later on, a great piece from Samara Gill, our reporter who went down. You might be very interested, by the way. Here's a little soupçon for later. Have a watch.
It is a Muslim area.
Yeah?
Lots of Bengali people and Muslim people live around this area.
If people say things that are offensive to Muslims, should the police be called?
Yes, definitely.
Is Whitechapel a Muslim area?
Well, apparently it is, but for them to even be proudly say this is a Muslim area, when Christians are trying to live there too, is totally unacceptable.
Don't miss that later with Samara Gill here on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and free speech. I want to say very good morning quickly. The Sun columnist Ross Clark. Great piece, Ross, in today's paper. Andrew's massage scandal rubs off badly on Labour too. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Fine.
Extraordinary, this Andrew Mountbatten Windsor story. Mandelson as well. New claims that Andrew made taxpayers pay for his own private massages whilst working as a trade envoy. We can come out with all the obvious, you know, it wasn't a happy ending, but you imply, and I think you're dead right, this goes deeper. And in fact, I would say this to you. To me, Gordon Brown's been on the front foot. He employed him. Doesn't this all come back on Blair, for God's sake, to a degree? I haven't heard anything from Blair in all of this.
Well, it does. I mean, Andrew was appointed trade envoy in 2001 when Blair was Prime Minister, as allegedly on the lobbying of Peter Mandelson. Now, Mandelson had been business secretary, as you remember, so it would have been his business to find somebody to be trade envoy, but he had to resign from that job at Christmas 1998 because of his little problem with his mortgage loan from and the other loan from Jeffrey Robinson. So, yeah, it really does come down to the Blair era. And what was going on at that time, if you remember, is that New Labour wanted to modernise the monarchy. It saw Queen Elizabeth II as the sort of fusty remnant of old-style royalty. And remember that famous photograph of Cherie Blair yawning loudly in just behind the Queen when she was taken to the Highland Games near Balmoral. They wanted to modernise the monarchy, and sort of appointing Prince Andrew to some supposedly useful role as trade envoy was all part of that. It was sort of, let's make use of our royal assets. But whereas, it should have been obvious from the beginning that he was completely unsuited to that job. He was, every time he'd opened his mouth on a royal engagement, he'd got into trouble. He had no background in business, no knowledge of trade policy, and yet here he was being sent out to bat for Britain, sort of in trade negotiations. I mean, not just as a figurehead, but as a sort of, as if he were actually doing the negotiations, or as that's what we were sort of led to believe. So it does reflect very, very badly on New Labour. And of course, not just that he was appointed to the job, but he was then kept in that job for a whole decade while he was sort of apparently submitting expenses for masseurs and so on. So this is a disaster made in New Labour land.
I completely agree, and I think what's great about the article, we haven't got much time, is that what it's thrown up, and I think you'd agree with this, well, I hope you would, but your opinion, so much of what's going on at the moment, Mandelson being arrested, all the questions to do with Epstein, how he managed to ingratiate himself and get back into Labour. The Andrew thing, the trade envoy secrets, they're both ongoing cases, so we have to be careful. The word grubby keeps coming up from people texting and calling. Grubby, unfairness, entitlement, accountability. I don't think this is going to go away. I think a lot of normal, everyday, hard-working Brits, alarm clock Brits, are saying, hold on a minute, how much do we not know about what's going in so many of our important institutions in the world, in our country, rather?
Yes, well, it's true, isn't it? I think, you know, going back to New Labour, the real spirit of New Labour can be summed up in that infamous quote from Peter Mandelson saying he didn't mind people getting filthy rich as long as they paid their taxes. And that summed up New Labour all over. It was just absolutely in thrall to wealthy individuals, and didn't sort of really ask the questions of where their wealth had come from, how it had been accumulated. As long as, you know, they paid taxes to fund New Labour's social programmes, it would sort of cuddle up to all these kind of people. And Mandelson, obviously the worst of all, he was sitting duck for any sort of any dubious character offer who wanted.
I wouldn't describe him as a sitting duck. I'd say it was he was absolutely desperate for it. It's an amazing piece as ever, Ross. Listen, I apologise for the speed of today, but we very much appreciate you being on the phone. But Ross's great article, page 10 today in The Sun, implying that Andrew, the massages, all of that, the trade envoy, inspired by New Labour. Gordon Brown came out and said, you know, Mandelson shouldn't. You employed him. You were the Prime Minister when it was, you know, all of these people. Where is it going to end? Back 3, but at 25 minutes to 9 o'clock, another person horrified by the story coming out yesterday that Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane was allowed out of his mental institution where he went on to murder 3 innocent people because the people there thought that it would be deemed racist to let him out, to keep him in rather, because his skin was black. Morning, Fee.
Good morning, Jeremy. Great show as always. Regarding your interview with Emma, the mother of that beautiful boy Barnaby, I just want to say this just goes to show what happens when the term racist and racism is thrown about just like it's normal day-to-day conversation. Now, these were people that were in authority, in institutions, that had a job to do, and the fear of being called racist overstumped the fact that this Valdo, oh my God, I can't even say it, was a danger to society. The racist card has got to stop being thrown around so willy-nilly. It just goes to show it supersedes any common sense and logic in society today. And I feel for her, and it was a great interview, very uplifting to hear that this has come out and finally we get to see the truth.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 23 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. It is your show, the Talk Breakfast Show. It's about your opinions and your views on the news of the day. Common sense, free speech, it's all here. 0344 499 1000. So much response to Emma Webber, Barnaby Webber's mother. earlier, talking about the beginning of that inquiry into how her son and Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates were stabbed to death by, well, that fiend, vile fiend, Valdo Calacane. People jumped up and went, oh, he's mentally ill. He was released from an institution because the carers thought it would be wrong to let him stay in because of the colour of his skin. They'd be deemed racist, for Christ's sake. Hello to Jackie in Stoke-on-Trent. Morning, Jez. What the hell is going on? Hats off to Barnaby Webber's mum. It is sick that these barbaric monsters are allowed to slip through the mental health system. These departments are not fit for purpose. What about the Southport murders? These people shouldn't be allowed out in public. Bring back the mental institutions where these animals can be kept under lock and key. Now, you see, Jackie, a lot of people will be really, really offended. Just hear me out, and they'll go, oh, my God, how can you call him an animal? He's got mental health issues. No. You want to keep it talk and you want to listen to what Emma Webber said. Go onto YouTube and hear it back, because the woman said, the mother, and this was day one of the inquiry, on his phone he'd been looking at Dunblane and other murders, how to get weapons, how to do... appalling. And all of that was missed, and he was released. We have to get past a point, surely, where we're going, oh, bless. And we go, do you know what? Do you know what? The truth of the matter is, you should not be at liberty in my society, right? You do not have either the mental capacity or you're just plain bloody evil. You're not living amongst our society. Good morning, Ellie. I hope it's Ellie. Hi, Ellie.
Jez, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to be able to believe. I've got a friend whose father has been locked up, sectioned and locked up for years and years, and he receives his benefits. And when he dies eventually, they will get all that money. And she's rubbing her hands together going, it's up to about 50,000 so far. The longer he hangs on, the richer I'll be. And yeah, he's got about 50,000 so far. It's going to be more. Yet when my mum went into a care home, they made her sell the house. They took all her money down to the last £12,000. So I said to her, well, I feel very cheated that my law-abiding mother ended up in care, and we've had to give all of her money and all of her possessions and her house and her property and everything, and only keep the last 12,000. You're getting to keep all your dad's money because he's been sectioned. It's disgusting.
I could not. That just about sums up. God, that is so spot on, Ellie. Morning, Jez. Love Sarah Poachin. Surely not dealing with criminals because of race and excusing them using mental illness is politically and morally incorrect. I think every criminal is badly wired, says Mike in Whitney. Pete in Norwich, I feel very humbled by Emma Webber's dignity. Thank you. Jez, this country is slowly declining and I shed a tear for Emma and a loss, but I believe there is hope. 2 of my 5 grandchildren have been doing their bit for Remembrance Day. Their great-granddad was there on the D-Day landings. That's Keith in Oswestry. I hope I've got that right. Good morning, Jez. Me and my partner are moving to Runcorn. I'm glad Sarah is the MP for that area. It makes me very happy. Carl's in Derbyshire. Why do individuals in our institutions like the police get lauded when they succeed, yet when they fail, the public so miserably they are reprimanded as a statutory body? We need to wheedle out these failing individuals and punish them. Jane says, I'm heartbroken for Emma. If you missed the interview, you'll be able to find it on YouTube later. We'll put it out there. It's just astonishing. Day one of that inquiry into how Valdo Calacane was released free to slaughter 3 innocent people and ruin lives. 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. Today is a very, very special day for the Ukrainian people. Not that it's something they would celebrate, because their bravery over the 4 years goes without question. It was 4 years ago today that Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm delighted to welcome a lady I haven't spoken to for ages, a really strong and amazing woman. Kira Ruddock is a Ukrainian MP. She's live in Kyiv. Kira, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me. You know, today we had electricity for 6 hours straight, so it feels like a super luxury. And we just hope that because we survived till the end of winter, there is something good coming right up. It's very hard to stay strong. People are really exhausted. I cannot begin to tell you how hard it is when you do not have heating and electricity and it's minus 25 outside. But look, at the beginning of full-scale invasion, people didn't give up. And right now, we are still here. Nobody gave us more than a couple of days.
But that's the point I wanted to make. I mean, sometimes we can sit here and talk about some of the heinous things that have gone on here. For the Ukrainian people, as you said, 4 years ago, and I remember talking to you regularly. Nobody gave you any hope at all. You've survived this for 4 years, and sometimes context is really important. We're just celebrating having 6 years, you know, six hours of electricity, which is extraordinary. Let's just talk about the resolve of the Ukrainian people. It doesn't show any sign of wavering. I'm sure there have been hard times, and I think that that would have surprised the Russians and Putin more than anything. Would I be correct?
Absolutely. Putin's plan for this winter was to freeze us to submission, to wind us down with the darkness. And I can tell you this winter I spent with different people helping out the communities that were targeted the most. And it was very hard. I have seen so many tears. I have seen so many frustration and pain. However, I didn't hear one thing, something like let's capitulate or let's do whatever it takes to get it over with. No, people understand who the enemy is. And we know for a fact that this thing that got us through the 4 years, through this winter, will hopefully get us forward. Like ability to stand together, to support each other, to believe in each other, to support our armed forces, because the truth is we wouldn't be here if it was not for them.
What about Zelensky? We still, one of the things that I'm interested in is the country still behind him? There was talk, I think, a few months ago of murmurings of discontent, but is he as rock solid as he was before?
He is. Well, his support has been going up and down, but we cannot have elections during the martial law, and Ukraine never asked for elections during the martial law, so these ideas were coming from Russia and from the United States. So because we cannot have elections, there is no point of really trying to take President Zelensky down, right? Because he is standing for the country, he is doing his part, and we stand behind him. We will criticize him when the time comes. We criticize him for corruption cases, for sure. However, right now we still have to work as a team because it's for the team to survive.
It's really interesting as well. I remember talking to you before about, and you actually, somebody said, oh, how could you ask her that? And you were brilliant. War fatigue doesn't mean anything to the Ukrainian people who are facing, if you look at the stuff on screen, I'll explain for you if you're on the radio, people's houses being burnt, bombed, no electricity, darkness, freezing, cold, dreadful. We shouldn't moan about anything. But is it a frustration? Is it a worry that perhaps the focus on this has diminished slightly across the world?
Of course. And, you know, people cannot be emotional about things for a long time. And we are at this point of a war where there will be no surprises. There will be no new information that we can provide to you. There will be no like some specifically devastating children's hospitals bombarded, because Russia already has done that, and maternity wards, and torturing people, and killing civilians, committing all kinds of the war crimes. It is all already at the table. So right now, what we need is the strategy of the West to shift from like going step by step and slice by slice, weakening Russia and strengthening Ukraine, to really making the hard decisions, going ahead with the weapons that were not provided beforehand, imposing sanctions that were being held behind, moving forward with the things that were unspeakable a year ago, 2 years ago, and they need to become reality right now. Again, like coming back 4 years ago, we were sent helmets and said like to hold on here. And right now we are defending ourselves with lots of Western weapons, because we have proven our ability to defend ourselves skillfully and making a very good use of the support that is coming here. I
just want to ask you on a sort of personal level, what's it like living in a country that must be in a permanent state of mourning for lives lost and the destruction of almost everything that you've ever believed in by the Russians? I mean, do you personally ever shed a tear for what's happened to the country that you previously lived in?
I can tell you honestly, I cry a lot. But I can also tell you that this amount of devastation and pain tells you to love a lot and not to put anything to tomorrow, because tomorrow is absolutely not given. So if you want to say that you love someone, you do it today. If you want to give somebody a cheer up or some support, you do it today. If you want to help someone or achieve someone, you do it today. And it actually changed all of us, because we are living in this like very short period of time. And it's also very painful to know that there is no coming back to the past, and that like the world before 2022 has collapsed. But I am also hopeful that we will be able to build something new with everyone's support, where Ukraine will be able to get and get the dreams that we always had, like becoming a member of European Union, getting in a strong military alliance, having our kids study abroad and have like this fantastic future. I'm trying to concentrate on the good things, because there's like so much pain and devastation every single day around us.
Have you lost friends and family, or have you, people that you knew in this war?
Jeremy, I have been to so many funerals, I cannot begin to tell you. And every time we are having a mourning minute at 9 a.m. every day, sometimes I get to the end of this minute and I don't even list all the people that I'm mourning. And this is so frustrating and painful. And the issue is that it will never reverse, never go back. And but I can tell you, the more in my prayers are people who are currently fighting, and I'm just really, really doing everything I can so they will not be in this mourning list.
I wanted to ask you those questions because we have spoken a lot and will continue to speak. I think it's really important that the British people and the world in general keeps hearing this story. And for the detractors, I mean, people you said, you talk about it the whole time, you're warmongering. No, I'm not. This is actually our war, because if this goes beyond Ukraine, Europe's in trouble. Kira, it's not the right thing to say happy 4th anniversary. It's just great to see you again, and your bravery and what you're doing should mean an awful lot to the Ukrainian people. Thank you so much indeed for being on. Kira Ruddick there, a Ukrainian MP, describing in great detail what life is like in Ukraine 4 years on from that invasion. They just had 6 hours of electricity and they're celebrating. She's lost tens of friends and family in a war that's... For what? For that mad Putin. Oh, that madman will ring up going, Vladimir Putin's a good man. Just don't bother texting me. I'm not interested in you. He's as vile as Valdo Calicane. Morning, Lisa.
Morning, Jezza. It's Lisa from Canterbury. With this Nottingham killer freed, or, A, because he was black, and B, he's given a very minimal sentence in a hospital due to mental illness. Let's face it, anybody who goes around killing somebody, of course they're mentally ill. That will go without saying. So, to use that as a separate issue just to get them out of prison is an absolute utter disgrace. And if it was me, I would be suing the institutions that let him out, that killed my children. Thanks. Bye.
Good morning to you. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten wins it. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files was released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So many responding to Emma Webber. I want to look at something else which sort of ties into this as well. The former head of National Counter-Terrorism Security Office and ex-Met Police DCI is our next guest. Chris Phillips, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Jeremy.
I want to talk to you about something that Staffordshire County Council have agreed to, which I think should be a template, and it leads to so many questions. We've heard, ladies and gentlemen, that Staffordshire County Council have agreed its first community safety strategy, which means zero tolerance, thank Christ, for grooming gangs. Now, there isn't a person with a brain cell in this country that does not think that we need this inquiry and is appalled that every institution seems to be dragging its feet, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back in time, Jeremy, because we have to remember where this has come from. The police were immensely criticised in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, early 2000s for not considering community enough, for not being culturally minded. And there's just simply been an overreaction. And the National Police Chiefs have exacerbated this. And it's just become the more woke you can become, the better. And so what we've seen is a series of senior officers who have allowed things to happen in our communities and not deal with them properly because they're worried about upsetting the local community. Ridiculous. Policing is about policing the laws. It always has been. Mistakes will be made, but we've got to be firm, we've got to be fair, and we've got to stop this nonsense, this woke nonsense that we've become used to.
Well, it leads on from the story of Nottingham killer Valdo Callacane. You've heard me, and I spoke to Barnaby Webber's mother this morning. I mean, you're talking about a bloke who had, on his phone, there was proof that he was looking at how to murder people and people who'd been murdered, and mental health nurses went, oh, we better release him because he's black. We've got to the point where any rational, common-sense decision disappears. I've told you this before. When I spoke to a police officer, and I never forgot it, Rochdale, several years ago, he said to me, well, the thing is, it's taken 8 years to bring justice to these young 8-year-old English white girls because we don't want to upset certain sections of the community. I don't know about you, but I don't want any pervert of any age, of any colour, of any... I don't want him anywhere near children. He should be locked up or deported. I can't have it.
No, and this does come back to politicisation of policing. You know, you have to be a bit structural about this as well. You've suddenly got the police and politics mixed together rather than the police just being allowed to get on with it and basically telling sometimes politicians to clear off and mind your own business, which is what senior police officers used to do, which so upset the political elite that they wanted to change that. And this is where we're at. We've got politics involved in policing and we've got policemen scared to do their job.
Do you think that, because I don't understand it, and I've got loads of things to throw at you very quickly, nobody understands this, do you think we will get a national rape gang inquiry, yes or no?
I don't know. I think possibly we will because pressure's being brought to bear by people like yourself. However, is it really necessary? We've just got to get the police to do their bloody job properly.
I mean, do you think rape gangs are still operating across Britain?
I absolutely do. And I think that we're just blind to the fact of what's happening in our communities. People are now, in the last couple of years, starting to stand up and realise what's been going on. But this is a cancer that we've got to get out, and we've got to be really strict, and we've got to really understand that things like things like Islamic laws and stuff like that just shouldn't exist in this country. We need to take a firmer hand.
And I said this to Emma Webber. Do you think the authorities are letting down the victims? We seem to be in a country now where perpetrators of crime get excuses or they get treated better than the victims. These victims of these rape gangs, their lives are ruined forever. We're letting them down, aren't we?
We're letting victims down generally, to be fair. That's, you know, not only has there's always been the case to some extent, the criminal justice system is an arse, but it's got worse, and it's got worse through underfunding. We don't have the police officers to do the investigations that we would have done previously. We don't have the court time and system to deal with the cases, and we certainly haven't got the prison spaces to deal with those that are actually convicted.
You'll think I'm going to argue with you because I love everything that you say, but you see, I've written that down. And you're right. We get told we haven't got the officers, we haven't got the court time, and we haven't got the prisons. But we bloody well did have after the Southport murders, when Keir Starmer wanted to put his extra police on the streets and within 24 hours arrest and put people in prison because his reason was, oh, they're all far-right thugs. It tells me that there isn't a will to do this. That's my point.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can always do something at short notice when, again, politics decides that this is really necessary. You can take police officers away from communities. You can get rid of the local Bobby on the beat that we used to know and love, and that's the basis of our policing. That's all gone. We're now into response policing and the police doing the will of their political masters, which is just such a shame.
Mate, it's a pleasure. Love having you on. Thank you, as ever, Chris Phillips, counter-terrorism security officer at ex-Met Police DC. I love you having on the show. At 9 o'clock, we're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast comes back with Carl Turner, a Labour MP who is up in arms against the leader of his party and the Prime Minister. He joins millions of others. Lord Peter Mandelson was arrested last night. We have to be careful. Safe to say, who gave him the job? Keir Starmer. Let's talk about his judgment next on Talk Breakfast.
Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock, an hour left to Talk Breakfast on Tuesday, the 24th of February, nearly said 23rd. We're live across the UK. It's the home of Common Sense. It's the home of Alarm Clock Britain. You're waking up to the news or tuning into the news that Lord Peter Mandelson, arrested last night, released on bail for allegedly passing government information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. We'll talk about that with Carl Turner, a Labour MP, in just a tick. Because what does it say about Starmer's judgment? We'll talk about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. If you're just on the shift or you're on your way to work or on the way home from the night shift, he charged massages whilst he was a trade envoy to you, the British taxpayer. But the story that's really got you this morning, and I'm not surprised at all, is that Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane, we found this out on day one of the inquiry yesterday, was released from a mental institution because health workers feared that detaining him because he was black could be deemed as racist. It transpired that this human being had a history of violence, had planned what he was going to do, was deemed as too dangerous for being looked after, and out he went to kill Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber, both aged 19, of course, and 65-year-old Ian Coates. This morning on the show, I spoke to Emma Webber, Barnaby's mum, who is quite simply the most amazingly brave woman I have ever met. And for all the do-gooders who might go, but the poor man was mentally ill. No. There's a case to be answered here, for this was state failure. Just listen to the litany of failures that Emma says led up to the release of the Calacane. Have a listen, have a watch.
He's lied and manipulated, and he planned this whole attack. It came out yesterday, I understand, about for finally, for the first time ever, a suggestion of race comes into this. And, that can't be the thing. It can't be because he was black. We have to deal with the facts. But what I don't know if came out very clearly yesterday, the very big question about what was found on his phone. It's never been made public before. Do you know what he'd been downloading and looking at on his phone? He'd been looking at Dunblane. He'd been looking at Buffalo. He'd been looking at mass shootings. He'd been looking at what happens with body-worn cameras from the police and the emergency services. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was in Ilkeston Road. He was prowling and hiding in that area because yesterday we heard countless examples and accounts of him stalking, assaulting, and scaring the living daylights out of students. He's a 30-year-old man at university, put in halls of residence with 18 and 19-year-olds. And those witnesses, those brave students are coming forward this week to give witness. By the way, he wasn't released. It wasn't like he was released from a mental institution and went on to do it. He was discharged in September 2022 because he failed to turn up to appointments. They were sending letters to an address he didn't live at. He constantly, and they knew he gave false addresses. They tried to ring and there was no answer. He said that he was abroad and wouldn't be back until October. His mother actually confirmed that he was in the country because she'd spoken to him. So he was discharged to his GP, and in his GP's witness statement, there was no red flag. There was no, this is a dangerous person who's been sectioned 4 times, violent assault. The girl that had to jump out of her window to escape him, she broke her back. She's got life-changing injuries. She wanted to press charges and she couldn't. She was not allowed to press charges. That will come out this week. You will see the scale of this individual and his reign of terror over a number of years in Nottingham.
What an amazingly brave lady, but it does highlight absolutely a litany, as I said, of failures. If one of those things had been picked up, 3 people's lives would have been saved. Paul in Fife goes further, and I agree with this. He says, Valdo Calacane, Axel Rudabakana, the guy that murdered Lee Rigby, these are examples of why our institutions, the police, social work, schools, NHS, are no longer fit for purpose. Zero accountability. Not one person, Jez, will lose their jobs or face imprisonment despite the fact that it was their ineptitude which contributed to the horrific deaths. Diversity and inclusion is destroying the very fabric of a society. The sooner we accept there are monsters out there who need to be locked up regardless of their colour or religion, the sooner we may have a society with values once again. I'm going to go further and say this is my opinion, not talks. I understand the people who go, oh, you know, is there good in that person? I'm sure there is in some people, but why can we not have a serious and honest discussion and debate about this? There are evil people, right, who are not going to be helped, who are never going to change, and who are a menace and a threat to society and should be locked up forever, and the key should be thrown away. Morning, Ben.
Yeah, morning, JK. It's Ben from Lincolnshire here. Reference this bloke getting let out to go and kill people just because it'd be racist to keep him locked up. It's about time that we actually made these parole boards and judges and doctors that sign these release forms to be culpable for the crimes that these idiots go on to commit. So anybody that basically allowed him to be freed from jail for no reason whatsoever other than the fact of his colour, like, they need to go to prison for life because they are culpable for those murders.
Couldn't agree more. Get your thoughts on that and everything else in the news. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. We're delighted to be joined now by a man who's not scared to put his head above the parapet. The Labour MP for Hull East, Carl Turner. Welcome to Talk Breakfast, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Lovely to be with you.
Can I get an instant reaction to this appalling story before we talk politics? Yesterday, Nottingham killer Valdo Calacane, the inquiry day one, said he was let out because health workers feared detaining him could be deemed as racist because he was black. Am I right or wrong in saying that we need to stop making excuses for perpetrators of crime in this country and do a damn sight more for victims, Carl?
Absolutely spot on, Jeremy. Look, I met with Emma. She is probably the most articulate person I've ever spoken to in a scenario whereby emotions were running high. I met her with Emily Thornberry when I was the Shadow Solicitor General and Emily Thornberry was the Shadow Attorney General. We committed to her, this was in opposition, we committed to her in that meeting for an inquiry, a public inquiry. There was some delay, but thank goodness the government agreed eventually to that public inquiry. But the stuff that I've just heard is appalling, to put it mildly. She's represented, I'm glad to say, by a very, very close personal friend of mine, Neil Hudgell, solicitor. I believe the inquiry began yesterday, but I can tell you now, Jeremy, Hudgell solicitors will ensure that everything that needs to come out will come out, and there'll be legislative changes as a result of the stuff that this inquiry finds. I want to give my best to the family. They're unbelievable people, you know, and thank goodness Grace and Barney and Ian have got people like that on their side, despite the fact that, God rest them, they're not here now.
Do you think, I mean, how do I put this? I don't want to, I mean, do you think it will cause any change? You know, I mean, this sort of desire, as I said, to sort of scrap common sense. I just don't understand it. And I'm bound to ask you a question. This is you're my favourite Labour MP. You say that you and Emily Thornberry said that and stuck to, in opposition, we will have an inquiry. Can you explain to me, Carl, right, why this government has not damn well said we'll have an inquiry into the rape gang scandal, the grooming gangs, as other people call it? That, to me, isn't even... It's not a bigger tragedy, it's another example. I don't get that either. Never have.
Well, the argument about that was that there'd been inquiries, separate inquiries with local authorities up and down the land, and it wasn't necessary to have a full mass inquiry, if you like. But, I mean, I didn't buy into that, but I was trusting in Jess Phillips because I know Jess well. She's a minister who I'm absolutely committed to, in the sense that she knows more about the issues that she's dealing with than any other Labour MP in the place. That's just my honest opinion of Jess. And, you know, well, for whatever reason, she was advised strongly by officials in the Home Office that it was probably not needed.
I don't want to
think-
listen. You and I are mates. I won't accept from any politician of any side. Not you. You're not. But sorry, I know Jess Phillips. Not good enough. The public will demand and will continue to demand an inquiry into how white 8-year-old girls were raped, whose lives were blighted forever. And I repeat to you what I've said before, and we'll move on. That the senior copper in Rochdale said to me years ago, we've slowed it down a bit because we don't want to upset, local communities. And if you're... Forget politics for a minute, right? If you are basing... if we are basing what's right and wrong on fear of upsetting certain religions or communities, we're in a terrible situation, for want of a better word. Let's bring it... Did you not agree with that, yeah?
I think that's fair, but look, I think Jess had done a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes, actually, and she got to where she needed to be eventually. Look, Labour MPs have been involved in this stuff. Sarah Champion, for example, in Rotherham, she did a lot of work to ensure that this stuff came out. But look, you're right. Politicians have got to be responsible.
Yeah.
When we get into government and we're ministers, we've got to answer to the public. And look, I think, some of us are having to do now because we have the responsibility of those posts on our shoulders. So let's see what comes of all of that stuff. But you're dead right. People want answers. People are absolutely disgusted by it. And the idea that we sort of fear saying stuff because we don't want to hurt people's feelings is just absolute nonsense.
And I think the people are aware.
I nearly said a swear word, but it's too early in the morning.
No, you can do that. I've been swearing 6-6. I think also the local inquiries, more information's come out that would make a national inquiry far more important. That's the point. Listen, let's move on. You and many other Labour MPs have quite rightly questioned Keir Starmer's judgment, and the front of every single newspaper yesterday, surprise, surprise, the arrest of, I still have to call him Lord Peter Mandelson, apparently, released at about 1 a.m. on bail. He was arrested for allegedly passing secret government information to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. We have gone round and round in bloody circles about how far this goes and what he knew and the tentacles and Willie Squeal. I'm going to do something else because it's what I've said since 6 o'clock. Carl Turner, what the hell does this say about the judgment, again, of your leader and the Prime Minister of this country? It's beyond appalling, mate. Really beyond appalling.
Well, look, I've said for a while that the government, not just the Prime Minister, number 10 Downing Street, but the government have been too over-reliant on the advice of advisors. I don't think politicians have always made decisions. I think they've been pressured hard by advisors. And frankly, this was a decision that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, regrets bitterly. There's no question about that. I saw the whites of his eye, Jeremy, in that meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party. And I can tell you, I know Keir Starmer really well. Trust me, I do. Promise you. He looked absolutely broken that we'd come to the position whereby he'd appointed Mandelson, and he felt very strongly that Mandelson had lied to him and his officials.
But he knew. But now, Carl, this is the point. I'm going to argue with you. He knew because he was told by various people, and this is why there's a debate. If you stood and you went, right, nobody flagged anything to me, and I genuinely accept this is an appalling decision and I got it wrong. But it's not that. Why I think the British public is so wound up is we heard the security services had reservations, the Parliamentary Labour Party had reservations, almost every single bugger who'd ever come into any contact with Peter Mandelson had reservations. And you can look broken and all that, but the truth is this does question Keir Starmer's judgment, or, put another way, his inability or lack of wanting to listen to what, to anybody else, seems reasoned argument. Do you know what I mean?
I know, but let's put a bit of context in, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
look,
sure.
People will have been saying to the Prime Minister at the time, there's an opposite argument. I suspect Keir Starmer's instincts was, look, we ought not to be doing this. There's a relationship that existed post the conviction of Epstein. I don't like the smell of this. It looks bad. I'm not keen on it. Everything I've done as the DPP tells me that this is a terrible idea. And then there'll have been those who are lobbying and persuading and begging and pleading and telling him why it's a great idea. Look, I'll be honest with you. If I'd have been asked the question at the time, I'd have been saying, what's the pros and cons? Well, the pros are that this guy might get a relationship with Trump going. Actually, you might want to decide that it's still a crap idea, but actually he might be the man who can deliver for this country in the US in a way that nobody else can get a deal done. And he did deliver that trade deal. Now, That's an argument for then, really, because it's past now. But actually, there were pros and cons. I think it was probably an idea which, if he'd have been more careful, he would have listened to his own instinct, and actually he would have decided against. But I've got to declare an interest, Jeremy, because I know Peter Mandelson. I'm not his best mucker by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got a relationship to the City of Hull. He was the High Sheriff or some other title for a long time. His grandfather had a relationship with Hull. I've spoken to Peter Mandelson, never been out socially with a bloke, don't speak to him socially even. But he did have a relationship with MPs across the board. So this association that MPs have had with Mandelson shouldn't scupper them MPs, is my point I'm trying to make.
How many? Here's the question for you, because one of the things, and ongoing legal cases, we can't go into too much detail. How far do his tentacles stretch, and how much, if he goes down, is he going to squeal, Carl Turner?
Peter Mandelson is not a man you'd want to have a row with, I'll be honest with you. But I mean, I've never had any fear of Peter because he's never been my enemy. But actually, I think if you get on the wrong side of Peter Mandelson and you've got something you don't want on the front page of the press, I think you've got to be careful. That's the truth of the matter, actually. However, I don't think Keir Starmer will be embroiled in any of that nonsense because I know the man. He isn't that type. It is depressing in the extreme that Keir Starmer has got into government and we've been embroiled in all these shenanigans. MPs that are now ministers who have been involved as director of policy in this think tank and that tank, who have set about journalists because they've had the audacity of being journalists. For crying out loud, that stuff will really, really air with Keir Starmer. I promise you, he ain't the type to be that way inclined. He just isn't. Somebody described him to me the other day. It's like talking to the local vicar. He's just a guy who's genuinely polite, mild-mannered, actually. I suppose he can lose his rag, but he's a guy who's mild-mannered.
I think he's absolutely the wrong person to have ever been the Prime Minister, but we'll disagree on that. I want to ask you something, because I'm actually going to say this not in your defence. What I love about you is that you put your head above the parapet and you come on and you say your piece, and that should be respected by everybody, because the one thing I will do with this show, as long as I'm sat here, I want to take all sides and I want to have that debate. Can I tell you something that probably winds up my listeners even more than Starmer, is a fear that if Keir Starmer went and there was the need for an interim, that Calamity Lammy, quite possibly the world's most incompetent politician, could be the Prime Minister. Later this morning, it appears that David Lammy will make a major speech, he won't have written it himself, where he'll make clear he's not backing down on his proposals to slash jury trials by around half and potentially use AI to ease the backlog. Please, please give me your reaction, Carl Turner.
Well, look, Leveson, in his report 1 and 2, talks about easing the backlog by using technology, AI and all sorts of stuff. There's some good arguments to use technology in the justice system. The reality is it's knackered. It's on its knees. There's been no investment. And listen, this is not party political. I've attacked my own party. The truth is, the criminal justice system has been underinvested in for decades.
I don't think underinvesting can answer the main question, which is this. Are you seriously in favour of taking away what I would call the very fabric, which is you are not judged by a judge who might have a... You are judged by your peers from all walks of life.
Look, it's the worst idea. It's the worst idea that any government of any political persuasion could ever muster. The idea of doing away with a jury trial in serious criminal proceedings, less than 3 years. Jeremy, if you went out today, went into the local Waitrose or wherever, Iceland if you will, picked up a bottle of champagne, Pompane, whatever they call it, the stuff you can buy at these shops. You walk out the door forgetting to pay for it, right? It's shop theft of about 10 quid or 8 quid or 5 quid. But for you, it's the end of your career. Done, finished, put to bed, gone. So in those circumstances, I argue, you ought to be allowed to be judged by your peers. The fact that this idea you're walking out of Curry's with an iPhone that you've not nicked but you might have nicked shouldn't be given a jury trial is just absolutely absurd. Because if it happened to people that have got something to lose, and I'm sorry to say this because we all ought to be equal, and we are before the law, for now, actually, for now. If that scenario happened to somebody who's got something to lose, it is the end of the world. I was done for handling stolen goods 28, 30 years ago. I was accused as an antiques dealer of buying antiques that were actually, as it transpired, nicked. I had a trial in front of a jury. If the judge had allowed the jury to kick in, he didn't in the end. The case was thrown out by the Crown prosecution for no evidence. But the judge said to me, as I was being released from the dock, be careful in future, Mr. Turner. Be more careful. There's no smoke without fire. Now, that motivated me, Jeremy, to go and do a college course, eventually a law degree, then the bar course, and eventually practice as a criminal lawyer because of what was said to me. The injustice of being accused by a judge, being lectured by a judge, made me determined to be a lawyer so it could never happen to other people. And now my Labour government is threatening to take away the right to a jury trial. The point I make is this. That Judge Tom Cracknell, who died about a year ago, became my friend when I was practising at the bar. The reality is, if that had been a single judge on his own, I'd have been convicted and my life would have been absolutely gone. I'd have not been a lawyer.
That's an amazing...
I'd have not been a lawyer. I'd have not been an MP. I'd have still had a second-hand furniture shop in Hull, flogging gear to try and earn a living, and for the rest of me natural, I'd have been where I was. That's the truth.
Complete. What an amazing story. I want to ask you further, though. You won't mind me saying this. The Telegraph reporting that Lammy is to pay judges extra money to hear more cases in an effort. That's the same as barking madman, isn't it?
Well, look, I'm married to a judge. She earns enough. She earns enough money, my missus. She does all right.
Sorry, can I get this absolutely right? Carl Turner MP is married to a judge and thanks a judge for saving his life when he was in court for allegedly selling nicked stuff. You're a legend, you know, man. You are. Right. You're a legend.
My missus is a judge. She earns enough money, actually. Thank you very much. What the judges need to do is sit and hear trials. 10 to 20% of courts in the criminal Crown courts are not sitting today. The people listening and watching this will be thinking, tell me again, 20% of courts are not sitting, and you've got a judge in a circuit judge on 155, 160 grand a year, more than the Prime Minister, for not sitting and hearing trials, and Lammy wants to do away with juries. Get the courts sitting, for crying out loud. That's what Lammy's going to announce today. It's what I've been begging him to do for months. I begged the previous government to do the same. We're finally doing it. There's no need, Jeremy, to do away with juries. Stop it now. It's a disaster, and people will count this at the ballot box against their interest and will lose support if we haven't already lost enough already.
If you do ever lose your seat, you've got a place on this damn show forever. We love you. Carl Turner, Labour MP for Hull East. Good man. Thank you very much indeed. 9:25. Let's go to the phones very quickly. I want to go to Dorset. Jackie, good morning. Just a couple of minutes on Talk Breakfast. What you got?
Good morning, Jeremy. It's the first time I've ever spoken to you. Right, I'm a retired consultant nurse in forensic psychiatry.
Good.
This Nottingham thing has really, really upset me, because I want to know, I'd love to see the clinical files. I'd love to see where the risk assessment was. Who did the risk assessment? Were they qualified to do the risk assessment? Was it a validated risk assessment that would stand up in a court of law? And what other people don't realise is when someone is sectioned, it's not the nurses who have the power. It's the consultant makes the recommendation, and it's the social workers who apply the section.
Can I ask you a very quick question, because I'd love to have more time and we so appreciate you calling. A lot of people will look at this hideous example, the Victor Callicane, and they'll go, oh, but the staff are stretched and they're not trained, and this poor man's got mental health.
No,
I think there's a
no.
litany of failures. There's no common sense, and people need to be held accountable, don't they?
No, yes, the social workers do. And if, right, going back to the risk assessment, people have to be either qualified, registered or licensed to undertake a validated risk assessment. Now, if this health service did their own risk assessment off the back of a fag packet, it's not validated. It's not validated. It won't stand up in a court of law. It won't. Now, like I said to you, Jeremy, I'd love to see the clinical files. I'd love to see who was responsible for this. And to say that because he was of a certain ethnicity, right, I go back to social workers. Over the years, social workers have never, ever taken responsibility for their disastrous behaviour.
I couldn't agree more. Please don't think me rude. We want to get as many people on. I'm delighted to have had you call, though. Jackie in Dorset, thanks for making it talk. Jim, good morning.
Jeremy, it is exactly the same as the Manchester Arena bombing, where two security guards saw the bomber with a backpack on, wires hanging out of his bag, but were too frightened to confront him for fear of losing their jobs and being branded racist. This is what the world has become, where people are now too scared to challenge anybody for the fear of being branded a racist. Great show, keep up the good work.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:30. Julia Hartley-Brewer, the Queen of Westminster, here from 10 o'clock. Ian Collins, the Housewives' choice. Kev O'Sullivan, sounding fantastic on Drive from 4 o'clock this afternoon. We say a very good morning. You know, I've been up for 6 hours and Samara Gill just breezes in at 9:30. How are you?
I'm great, but I was working hard. I was in the throes of Whitechapel yesterday.
Before we do this, Christian will look at me. I want to do something else. I need to ask everybody today. You'll know that almost still half of councils in the country are failing to comply with the Supreme Court ruling about, you know, there's just a man and a woman. And the NHS in various areas are telling staff you can be he, him, me, her, she, her, he, him, they, them, z, zem, zit, whatever. Nearly said tits. What do you identify as?
I identify as, I identify as tired. I identify as, you know, done with it all. I identify as a, no. Good morning, everyone. No.
Bloody hell. Good, so...
You're like my therapist. This is what happens. Not that I do therapy, but, you know, the thing is...
In the old days, I'd have been sat on the steps saying, tell me more.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not doing that. Yesterday, there was this astonishingly bad story about this female police officer, and I have to say this, female white police officer who was out on the beat or called. There was a situation in Whitechapel where a group of Muslim men took exception to a white lay preacher, I don't know why they say that, who was talking about Christianity. They said to him, "This is a Muslim area." The policewoman, by the way, did you see the male colleagues disappeared? And the female police officer came in and she was reasoning that free speech is two-way. So off you went to Whitechapel to find if this is symptomatic.
Off I did, on the instruction of our brilliant producer. And
well, who's that?
Gosh, well, I don't know if he wants to be named, but the findings were astounding, genuinely. I cannot believe we're just down the road from somewhere where integration, I think, has really, really failed. I mean, let's just take a look at this man who is Muslim, who I interviewed yesterday.
It is a Muslim area.
Yeah?
Lots of Bengali people and Muslim people live around this area.
If people say things that are offensive to Muslims, should the police be called?
Yes, definitely. Why not? And then, you know, it's religious things. So police will come and take it seriously.
So people should be arrested for saying anti-Muslim things?
It depends. It depends what they are saying, you understand. If they are saying bad things, police knows how it goes, so they will take it seriously. Maybe the person is arrested. Maybe they will give him a chance for not saying nothing.
So that man says it is a Muslim area.
He said it is a Muslim area, and he's saying that people should get locked up for saying things against Islam, which, last time I checked, we live in the United Kingdom and we somewhat have free speech, and you are allowed to say whatever you want about whatever religion. So it just shows you that these people do believe that they live in their own sort of
enclave,
harem, whatever you want to call it, and that's not good for anyone involved. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm the daughter of, you know, someone who is an Indian immigrant. I'm half Indian.
So, so there's a reason I want to do this study. So all the people who make judgments about things, just listen. This lady, you are half Indian, aren't you?
I am fully half Indian. My dad was an immigrant. He came to Australia at a time when they had 5,000 to 10,000 immigrants per year, a very small amount in relation to the population. He was Australia first. He wanted to do everything he could to become Australian, to discard some of the ways of life that he had in India and, you know, be on the Australian team. Unfortunately, because of mass migration and massive numbers, we just don't have that anymore in the United Kingdom.
But there is a point to you about your dad, and I'm really glad that you made it, which I make about the driver that sometimes picks me up. He came from Bangladesh.
Sure.
I hear more anger about the really genuinely successful people who have migrated to our countries, embraced, that's the word, embraced what we stand for, made a success, got their heads down, paid tax, built a business, blah, blah, blah. They're as proud of being British as I am. They are as angry, if not more so than me, about the people who are playing the system. And the people who go, well, you're being racist. No, we're not. Why do you want to come to this country and then spend your entire time slagging it off and trying to change it? Embrace it, or, excuse me, bugger off.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I think that we need to look at also demographic change and how important that can be to at least look at and make sure that certain areas don't become, you know, slightly more sectioned off than others. Because you're right, there's a lot to be proud of for being British. I mean, I'm an Australian, I'm part of the colony, came over here. People should be embracing what this country has to offer instead of, as you said, sort of brandishing it with this negativity. I did speak to an older woman who was fearing for her safety, actually. We should take a look at that.
Okay.
Is Whitechapel a Muslim area?
Well, apparently it is, but for them to even be proudly say this is a Muslim area, when Christians are trying to live there too, is totally unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. It's outrageous. If a Christian said that about the Muslims, there would be all hell would break loose. But they're allowed to say what they like.
Has immigration worked? Has mass migration worked? I mean, this place has changed a lot over the past 25 years or so.
The answer is no, and everybody knows that who lives in an area, especially an area like this. I used to live in Essex. This is where my children grew up. Totally different environment, but even that has changed now. Everything's changed.
Do you fear for your safety in this area?
I do, yeah, especially as a woman, yes. I'm not wearing a headscarf, as you can see. I'm not wearing one of those things here in front of my face and all this. This is already an anomaly that I can't walk about the way I want.
Interesting.
That's how she feels, you know.
Yeah, but you see, why do we have to justify that? We have to go, that's how she feels, that's how he feels. That's the whole point of this show. I agree with you. It just disturbs me that we can't see what's happening, and if we call it out, we get called every name under the sun. I'm not scared of being called every name under the sun. I welcome anybody to this country that will embrace it, enhance it, and make it a better place. I'm not interested in people who come here to take the screw us, slag us off and work against us. I don't see how that is not common sense.
Well, there was a real lack of English. It was hard to take the Vox Pops because a lot of people didn't speak English, which, you know, I've got time for if you're wanting to learn and everything, but I was brushed off and sort of pushed almost to the side, not physically, but in that sort of way. Also, I really wanted to talk to the Muslim women of the area because I think that that's a really interesting section to focus on, and I wanted to hear what their perspective was. Basically, none of them could talk to me. I've got
could or
reams
wouldn't
of
or weren't allowed to.
Exactly. I've got reams of recordings of me asking them and them just looking away. So what you can see here is a real cultural cultural trend there. So it's very interesting. It's just interesting to look at demographic change and the effect it's having on Britain. I mean, I don't have some sort of stalwart opinion on it, but we need to report on this.
It's fantastic. Where are you going today? I thought you could perhaps go to the... Oh, no, you can't go to the prison cell that Peter Mandelson's staying because he's back home now on bail. It's all going on, isn't it?
It is.
Have you seen... by the way, before 10 o'clock, we've got Angela Levin. Have you seen that headline in the Mail? I gave Prince Andrew a £75 naked massage and got paid by Coots Royal Bank by cheque.
Angela Levin did?
Not Angela.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she did. We'll ask her.
Yeah, please.
Samara Gill, legendary. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go quickly to Northampton's Brave. Tracy, good morning. You're on Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Jeremy. Brilliant show, as usual. Do you know what? I don't know whether to cry for our country, give up or fight. You know, I've heard so much now, this is a Muslim area. This is a Muslim, you've got to stay out of this area. Birmingham, you know, Berrywood in Luton. You know, when I go to Luton to see my friend, we daren't go down there. Everywhere, you know. And it's just like they're taking over bit by bit. They are taking our country. I've got a story. It's not a story, it's serious. On Friday, my son's wife, got her 2 children from school. On the way home, they stopped at the little park on a Friday after school. It was a little treat. She sat on the bench. 2 children was playing. Approaching her, well, not her, she didn't think that at the time, was a Muslim with a hood up. And she just sat there thinking, okay, you know. Anyway, he come and he sat on the bench next to her. So she felt a bit intimidated, so she shuffled up a bit more. He then shuffled up with her, grabbed her hand, and she fought him off. She ran for her 2 children. Now, this happened here, where you don't think it's going to happen to you in your town, right? This happened 5 minutes away from my home. Mm-hmm. He did get arrested, and he was let out within 2.5 hours.
Trace, I don't have all the time in the world, but I'm so pleased, and I mean that, and I'm so pleased to have you on. I have to say, your story is your story, and it worries me, and I've heard it so many times, but we will continue to highlight, and we will continue on this station to face, you know, being honest about things that are happening. I'm with you. It is not, I just want to nail this for the people that will criticise. It is not racist to say that if you want to come to this country just for benefits, to slag us off, to not learn our language and to not integrate and to set up your own society, we have every right to be hacked off with that. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Busy show this morning. Still to come, Angela Levin about a naked massage. That doesn't sound right. A very good morning quickly to James Esses, physiotherapist and founder of the Just Therapy Group. You are responding, my friend, to this ridiculous story overnight that half of councils are still allowing NHS staff to use millions of pronouns. By the way, what do you identify as, James?
Oh, well, thank you very much for asking that, Jeremy. I'm a straight, white, Irish, non-disabled, come on. How ridiculous.
No job for you, you normal man. This story this morning says that I, me, she, her, he, him, you, them, z, zir, z, zem, t, I don't know. What is it all? What a load of old crap, isn't it?
Look, this is unfortunately the byproduct of a generation that have become self-obsessed and engage in nothing more than navel-gazing. And the destructive nature of this, Jeremy, is that this is essentially a form of compelled speech, right? Because irrespective of what staff or patients at these hospitals think and whether they believe in biological sex and the reality of that, they are told that they must go along and indulge other people's delusional, fantastical thinking. And if they don't, they should be forced to apologise for it. I mean, it's a disgrace.
I couldn't agree more. I was saying earlier on the show, you wouldn't have been listening, you were probably asleep, that I have to do this pre-assessment for this operation 2 days ago, and the woman knows me. She said, you're going to get angry with me, but I need to ask you, are you pregnant? Right. And what are your pronouns? And I put sodden off, I think. I can't remember, but she laughed. But we have got to a point when you look at what's happening with our country and you look at what's happening with the world where it is understandable that people get massively increased by the waste of time this DEI rubbish continues.
Well, this is it. It's taken people weeks to get a GP's appointment. And yes, the amount of money and time being spent on this by middle managers is appalling. And the irony, Jeremy, is that this is done in the name of diversity and inclusion. But you know what wasn't very diverse or inclusive? Jennifer Melley, the NHS nurse who has been suspended for almost a year. And her crime? She dared to refer to a male paedophilic patient as Mr.
Oh, and he was all right to be racist towards her and be disgusting, but his rights, and I've been talking about Valdo Calacane this morning. I think, James, we've got to a point in this society, in this country, certainly, where we favour the perpetrators and make excuse for that, and the victims don't seem to matter. Jennifer Melley is a particularly shrewd case as an example, isn't she?
Well, quite right, but this is exactly what these ideologues want us to believe, you know, that up is down and left is right. And, you know, as a psychotherapist, I've got clients who come to me, they believe that they're transgender, trapped in the wrong body, etc., etc. And my duty, with empathy and compassion, is to help them gently to re-engage with reality. We do people no favours by indulging delusional thinking. Human beings thrive when they embrace reality over delusion.
Amazing. Really quick part this morning, but great to have you on, my friend. Very kind of you. James Esses, psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy. 9:45, we're live across the UK. Joanna in Salisbury. I love Carl Turney. He should be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Merv, the Swerve in Wiltshire. Carl Turner is superb. He could almost get me to turn red to Labour. Don't be ridiculous. Carl in Walthamstow. I never thought I'd burst into applause listening to Carl, but I have done. Brilliant. Jez, when that MP said that Starmer was like the local vicar, our local vicar, as far as I'm aware, doesn't get free stuff from Lord Ali, says Jim in Cambrook. Hello as well to Steve in Cambridge. Angela Levin, political legendary commentator, next on Talk Breakfast.
breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 30 minutes to 10. So Julia from 10 o'clock, Ian from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan driving you home from 4 o'clock this afternoon. This is Talk, the home of common sense, the home of Alarm Clock Britain. The one, I mean, listen, there's news everywhere. Victor Callaghan, that appalling story has dominated this morning. We've talked about Peter Mandelson arrested and then released on bail last night. But new claims about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who made taxpayers pay for his own private massages whilst working as a trade envoy. A very good morning, Angela Levin.
Morning. Nice to see you so quickly.
Well, there you go. I opened the mail up this morning at 4 o'clock and read, and I quote, I gave Andrew a naked massage for £75, and my bill was paid for by Coots the Royal Bank. And I thought of only one person at 4 a.m. Not because of the naked massage. I thought, Angela, get Angela back. Honestly, eh?
Honestly is exactly it.
How can you pay with a Royal Coots Bank cheque and not think that sort of stuff? I mean, honestly...
No, he wrote lists at the end sometimes of what his expenses were. So they didn't really bother to find out, did that come from Mrs. Smith down the road, or, you know, is that from Mr. Stark? And, you know, I think that he didn't actually give those the cheques. He actually gave the numbers that he'd been and where he's gone and all that. But I mean, it's sickening actually. It made me feel sick that that's how he feels about anyone.
Do you suspect there'll be more abuses of his expenses as a trade envoy to come out?
Well, I don't know, do I? I mean, I haven't been involved with that, thank goodness. But I think there seems to be just an endless running of it at the moment, and we don't know what else he can come up with. But what I find absolutely awful is that he doesn't care about anyone. He would take anyone and use their tax money. He doesn't care about the royals, including his mother, who adored him. You know, he's just a very, very unpleasant human being, frightening for a lot of people.
It's interesting. It's interesting for you to say that, and I completely agree. I told a story this morning about the old man, and people at 7:15 were like, "What?" And I'll tell it to you. I'll repeat it at 10:15. I think that transparency in the monarchy is going to have to be front and centre, because I don't think people are going to accept this anymore. As you know, the old man worked for the Queen Mother, and he told me this. He's dead now, anyway, so I can tell the story again today. He used to tell me that on a Sunday, Charles would drive up from Highgrove to play polo. But he didn't play polo, he come to Granny's house for the afternoon. I'm not going to why he went to Granny's house, probably to see Granny. Because every Monday morning on my dad's desk was a chitty that a footman had filled the Aston Martin with petrol, 70, 80 quid. There's so much that we don't know. And unfortunately, as a royalist for me, and I'm sure you're the same, I'm starting to question everything, Angela.
Well, I think you have to sort of be very careful about it, because they haven't actually got anyone to court yet. Oh. So we must be quiet until things happen there. And also that actually some awful people are just awful, and that doesn't mean that their whole family are going to be awful. And I don't feel bad about the royal family. I just feel they've been very unlucky with having a man like him.
No, I'm not saying that I'm not saying in any way that they are bad. What I'm saying is, yes, of course, it falls on them. They're then judged by some people, by the people who aren't royalists, not like you and me, through his prison. But more than that, the questions won't go away. Has the monarchy lost its prestige because of this? Is it going to be harder for the monarchy to survive?
I think it'll be harder because so many people are against them at the moment. But I think, calm down. If it calms down, and it should actually, even if it's a year ahead, it still will calm down at some point. And then you can, make a different way of working. I think that what the King does and the working royals actually are brilliant in how they look after people, and I think they should actually show that more. If you think how hard they do work and all the people they've got to see, and they're forever having to have conversations with people, short conversations, which for me is extremely boring. Going around shaking hands, smiling, being very nice. I mean, that's something that is essential. But
sure, but what I guess I'm saying is badly, and listen, just understand, I'm completely with you. I think they have been an extraordinary. I am, of course, I'm with you. I've always been a massive fan of the royals, but Angela, the problem I've got now is it's not even me. The silent majority are starting to question the validity, the importance, that whether do you know what I mean? I've never heard dissension as I'm hearing it now about the monarchy, and that makes me sad, but I don't think it's going to change. I hope it does.
Well, I heard it when Princess Diana died. I was working just across the road where there were thousands of people coming up and talking about it, that the monarchy must end. This is disgusting. Nobody looked after her. They haven't got the Queen down. And I used to go around talking to them because obviously it was easy for me to write about it. And they were absolutely furious with the royal family and with her, with everyone. Why didn't they look after her better? Why didn't they this? Why didn't that? And I think it's sort of a huge sort of steam of anger, and they're blamed for it. But I think it calms down a bit and people actually recognise what a good deal they do. We just have to wait. I'm sure it'll calm down.
I hope so. What was your interaction like with Andrew? Did you ever meet him?
With Andrew? Yes, extremely rude, extremely superior, but that's all right. I'm very good with understanding those sort of men. I just behave in a very superior way back.
Was he the sort of person, I've heard so many people say that he treated everybody exactly the same? Very important. There were rumours last week as he was led out of Royal Lodge. He was saying, I'm the Queen's second son, you can't do this to me. There's been absolutely no sort of, I realise I've messed up. He's still oblivious, isn't he?
But isn't that interesting? Because, I mean, his mother is dead. You don't keep going back on that and say, I'm a second son, and bring it up and use it as an excuse when she's dead. I mean, that is just revolting. He's a horrible man. He's really a horrible man.
I didn't really want to ask you this, but he never asked you for a massage, did he, Angela Levin?
No, he wouldn't dare. I have a very sort of strong behaviour when I see those sort of men. I'm very stiff, and they don't dare do it.
I know that this is like putting a piece of bait on the end of a hook. What do you think Prince Harry's reaction to all of this will be?
Well, I hope he gets an awful smacking himself, actually. I did like him hugely. I was with him for 15 months while I did my biography about him. But I think now he's rotten, him and his wife. And I don't think they should have their titles. I don't think they should be spoilt in this way. And the way Harry is trying to manipulate his father, I think is absolutely disgusting.
I agree, and I think that there is a real war going on, because I think when William does become king, there will be no way back. I think that Harry's trying to ingratiate himself is a matter of time. You said
he desperately wants to get in before
the door is closed. You said something yesterday which generated sort of a viral online mad moment. You said something about Meghan Markle. You said she must be very worried. I have to revisit it. What did you mean?
When I saw your face this morning, I thought, I know what he wants to be at the end of it.
What's she worried about?
What she's worried about is that, I'm going to be very respectable, that she will lose her title. That's very important to her. What she worries about is that she's no longer thought of as clever and wonderful. Nobody likes her, and she's beginning to recognise that. And she's had a very bad childhood and teenagehood where she's been doing all sorts of things which she probably regrets for now, but I'm not going into that.
So you're implying that because the
I'm not
light has
implying
been
anything.
but the light's been shone on the royal family, and that Meghan Markle's star in her own mind could be extinguished by something that she might or might not have done in the past. Would that be a general surmising?
She said that she and Harry were not going to say anything. They're going to keep away from saying anything because it will affect her brand. Can you ever hear anything so stupid?
You mean her jam?
Her brand, you know, all the things she makes, all the things she's trying to do. And she just makes sure that she's absolutely number one. And if she's not number one, she doesn't want to talk.
Who do you hate more, Andrew or Meghan?
No, I don't hate any of them. I dislike them. I don't.
Who do you dislike more, Andrew or Meghan?
Both.
I love you, Angela Levin. I did think of you at 4 o'clock this morning when I was reading about a naked £75 massage.
Don't be ridiculous.
No, I'm being serious. In that polo neck. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the show. We love you. Angela Levin, live and exclusive across the United Kingdom. We'll talk breakfast, and a woman... Oh, hold on a minute. What's the matter?
What just happened then, by the way?
I opened up the newspaper this morning and it said, and I quote, right, and we hadn't booked Angela Levin, it said, I gave Prince Andrew a £75 naked massage and was paid by Coots, and I thought Angela Levin, because she's very straight about the whole thing. I didn't think of you. I'm sorry. Did you want me to say I was thinking of you?
I don't know. I think I'm going to take your shovel away so you stop digging.
I'm not going there, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, anyone else been arrested lately that we know of? I mean, it's just extraordinary.
The Vito Callicane thing, on a serious note. The Emma Webber interview this morning.
Yeah.
Christ, Jules. Honestly, what a woman. What a mother.
But it is just extraordinary. All the things that keep happening here, and the inability of any of our authorities to get anything done dealing with